So guys, what if Naruto was rented devil's power to save Konoha movie? Konoha was once considered a dream for those in search of a nice place to settle down and raise their children. The many sights seemed like Kami's gift to the hidden village in the leaves, as nothing but leafy trees and cerulean blue rivers surrounded the strongest hidden village of all the elemental nations. Ever since its foundation, Konoha had withstood its ground against powerful enemies simply because the ninjas that protected this village all believed in one thing called the will of fire. Each shinobi was born with a sense of protection that passed through their veins, and it's what made Konoha's shinobi stronger than any other village. However, despite surviving large numbers of wars and numerous armies of enemies, it took only one single individual to level the entire village using but one jutsu that allowed him control over the air's gravity. Pain, the sole barrier of the world's most powerful dojutsu. The Rinnegan proved to be a god in terms of power, as he managed to level an entire village with but a small percentage of his power and rage upon the very ninjas who destroyed a little boy's life a long time ago. After leveling the entire village and killing the majority of the population, it seemed that Pain would be unstoppable. However, it took yet another individual to beat him, and this individual happened to be the very one that people had cursed and loathed his entire life. Uzumaki Naruto, bearer of the monster that attacked Konoha 16 years ago, managed to destroy all of Pain's bodies by an impressive display of control over nature chakra or senjutsu. The best part was that Naruto not only beat Pain, but his victory managed to open the mon's eyes, forcing him to remember their common sensei's beliefs of how the world needed to change, so that children wouldn't need to suffer any longer. In the end, Pain used a technique that only those with the Rinnegan could, that resulted in the resurrection all those who were victim to his attacks. Although Pain managed to resurrect the entire population, his passing did mark a scar, as Konoha still lay in ruins. The citizens were forced to live in tents until the village was rebuilt. One of the few sites that remained untouched was the Hokage monument. But if those now living up there so wished, it would be destroyed along with the village, as they were forced to witness the entire chaos without being able to lift a finger to help. The monument was created so that the Hokages could watch over Konoha even after their passing. However, to those who believed in the afterlife, it seemed like not only Kami but also the previous Kages forgot about the village's protection when Pain first initiated his path of destruction. Looking closer to the Yondaime Hokage's head, one single individual sat there as he pondered about the current events. In little to no time, the village he adored and couldn't get enough of was destroyed. Meaning he was too late to salvage it. Uzumaki Naruto was feeling strange as of late. Once he appeared after beating Pain, the crowd worshipped him as a hero for what he did. But in reality, he thought that he was indirectly responsible for Pain coming here in the first place. Granted, he managed to convince Pain into resurrecting everyone he killed, but it was because of him that the village was now in ruins. Naruto felt like he disappointed his father, whose head he was seating on. Namikaze Minato appeared in the middle of the fight inside his mind. Because of the Yondaime, Kyuubi could not fully take over his body. After doing so, he explained to Naruto that he was his father, and no matter what happened, he would always be proud of the man Naruto became. Nevertheless, the blonde wasn't sure his father would be proud of him at all, even though the threat was now gone and the village would raise its walls once more in a triumphant manner. No matter what happened though, Naruto's resolve was firm. He would help the village rebuild. As he got up from where he was sitting, the wind suddenly picked up, blowing his hair as a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Uzumaki Naruto wasn't particularly known for his sad tendencies, as he always found a way to cheer himself up as well as others around him. It was a must in his opinion. Actually, of course, he had every right to sit alone in the shadows, while at the same time wondering to the heavens why Kami felt his suffering to be just, seeing others around him happy while blissfully unaware of his condition as a Jinchuriki. A demon jailer was hard for him even after all these years. However, Naruto figured out long ago that crying wouldn't solve his problems. Rather, displaying a cheerful demeanor and hope to capture others' hearts just like the Sandaime Hokage and Yumi no Iruka at the time was the best way to change his circumstances. Within time, others joined his group of friends, and today he was a better man because of it. With his resolve, Naruto jumped from the monument down the mountain, displaying a smile that was able to brighten even the darkest of places. In no time at all, he was at the bottom of Konoha's most important mountain as he went to meet his sensei to discuss something he now felt was of utmost importance. As he passed through the never-ending number of tents, Naruto stopped by the largest one of them, and in seconds, his smiley demeanor stopped completely. He remembered just who was resting inside that very tent and was almost on the verge of dying as well. At the Hokage's tent . Once inside, he saw both his teammate Sakura and his sister figure Shizune taking care of a bedridden Tsunade. The toll of the fight was too much for the Godime. Seeing as she used all her chakra just to heal the wounded during the fierce battle that took place. According to Shizune, Tsunade was in a coma and wasn't sure when she would awaken or if she ever would. Naruto remained optimistic, saying that Tsunade was too stubborn to die now, but deep inside he knew the odds were against it. Naruto was aware, to some extent, of Tsunade's chakra usage and the effects of releasing the seal on her forehead. It accelerated her healing, though it came with a deadly cost, which was the degeneration of her body and her blood cells. "Shizune Nichan, how is she?" Naruto said, alerting the two medic nins to his arrival. The elder brunette looked at him for a while in surprise. Before returning the look to Tsunade, Naruto could only see sadness and regret in Shizune's eyes. It wasn't without merit, he thought. Shizune always stood by her master, helping in whatever she could to alleviate Tsunade's pain from losing both her brother and lover. Now, when she needed her the most, Shizune was at a loss as to what to do, as any medical search turned out to be futile. To her, nothing could be done except wait and hope that Tsunade somehow opened her eyes. So far, she's still the same. Her beatings are erratic, but otherwise fine. We just have to wait for her to open her eyes again, I am afraid. Her voice carried a great deal of pain as Naruto and Sakura flinched at her defeated tone. Sakura said nothing as she kept looking at the face of her mentor. Naruto, for his part, did the same, but the only things he remembered were the times he used to enrage the woman by calling her an old hag. The fact that it infuriated her at the time was what compelled Naruto to keep calling her that, even though he never thought of it as demeaning in any sort of way. Suddenly, he approached the Hokage and kneeled next to her. He grabbed her right hand, which was connected to the IV monitor. What he did next was quite a surprise to Sakura and Shizune. Closing his eyes, Naruto started a silent conversation with the Godime, although he knew only one would do the talking. "Hokage-sama, it must be funny to hear such an addressing from me, isn't it? I know that deep down you can hear me as I run my chakra through your veins. Certainly, I don't expect you to wake up as of now. After what happened, I wish I was in your position right now, drifting into some profound slumber, resting your body for when you wake up and see that Konoha is rebuilt once more, only waiting for your guidance. Rest assured, Tsunade, that it'll help rebuild this village to its former beauty for when you wake up. Until then, sleep well." As Naruto remained with his eyes closed, Sakura and Shizune were looking at his face with curiosity. When they saw him smile, the IV monitor suddenly showed an increase in her heartbeat. While it wasn't enough to indicate that Tsunade was out of her coma, it was certainly enough to increase Shizune's expectations of a healthy recovery in the future. When Naruto opened his eyes, he gently positioned Tsunade's arm next to her body as he placed the necklace around her neck for luck. Getting up, he turned and he began to walk towards the tent's entrance before turning to the two medic nins. "I am sure she'll be waking up in a few weeks. Please take care of her, Shizune Nichan, Sakura-chan." As Naruto turned once more, Sakura couldn't help but marvel at the majestic resolve of one Uzumaki Naruto. Despite her strength now rumoring to surpass Tsunade's, the pink-haired Chunin had her fair share of insecurities, often recurring to Naruto in order to feel safe. Now, though, it was different, as Naruto was overflooding with confidence and hope that the village would rise once again from scratch. Soon a smile was visible on her face and she wondered just how Naruto could be able to do this to her, without even trying to. Shizune saw Sakura's smile and displayed a grin of her own. Despite all the hardships that he faced in life, not only had he managed to save the village from total annihilation, but he also managed to increase both Sakura's and her own morale as well. Maybe, he was right, she thought. Tsunade would one day wake up and the village would once again be as beautiful as it once was. With Naruto . As Naruto progressed throughout the now crumbled streets of Konoha, he saw many workers bringing in the material needed for the village's reconstruction. Spring and Wave Country answered to the call of need right away. Wave supplied men for the reconstruction while Spring Country was responsible for supplying the necessary material. The Spring Country's daimyo was happy to assist the village in its time of need, but unknown to Naruto, Kazuhana Koyuki did everything for the young ninja that managed to save her entire country by ending her uncle's tyranny for good. As he saw a couple of construction workers talking to themselves about some plans. Naruto also saw Yamato there, adding his experience with wood manipulation into the mix. Naruto wasn't considered very smart when it came to figuring stuff out, but he understood Yamato's position right now. He remembered how the Jonin had a jutsu that was able to build mansions and castles with but a use of his chakra. The problem, though, was that rebuilding an entire village was even beyond his capabilities, and the man wouldn't be able to do everything alone. Good afternoon, Yamato Taiko. Helping with the construction, I see. Naruto's sudden intrusion took Yamato's attention away from the construction workers, but unknown to them, Yamato found Naruto's intervention a welcome distraction considering the boring talk that came out of the workers' mouths. Yo Naruto, how are you doing? Yeah, because of my Mokuden, I'll be helping with the village's reconstruction. We're planning here on rebuilding one sector per week. Hopefully, we'll be able to build the merchant district and a new hospital by the end of the week. So, what are you up to, besides goofing off? Yamato asked, seeing a grin on Naruto's face. Just hanging around. I was wondering what I could do to help with the reconstruction. You know, if you need an extra hand, I have what you need. Yamato smiled as he knew what he was offering. Seeing some tasks still left to be done, he turned to Naruto and gave him some orders. Okay, Naruto, as we all are in attendance right now, whatever we do here will count as a mission, so there are a few D-ranked missions for you to complete. First of all, we need you to clear section number 214 a couple miles north from here. There are some crumbled buildings down there that will need to be torn down. Can you do this for us? As Naruto nodded, Yamato continued with the list. Also, I was contacted that near the old Uchiha compound a few constructors are experiencing delays. Since they need to do some digging before beginning some apartment building constructions, I figure that with your Rasengan it will speed things up a bit. Anything else you need of me, Yamato Taiko? I've got more energy left, you know. Yamato smiled even more and considered that with Naruto now helping, things would be done much faster. That's it for now. Just stay put after doing these two missions. We'll need you more in the upcoming days. Naruto just nodded as he summoned 100 shadow clones and directed them all towards the designated areas. While he remained with Yamato for a while, he had one other person to meet in order to ask him something of great importance. As he traveled throughout the streets, Naruto's clones were being dispelled and the memory gathered told Naruto that the missions were done in record time. Although one clone ended up digging more than necessary, thus creating a much bigger hole than the construction workers needed, luckily, a Chunin was in the area and happily used a minor Doden jutsu to correct it, fitting the plant's requirements. The real Naruto suddenly saw the person he was looking for standing by the ruined west gate, before he jumped towards said direction. Near the west gate Kakashi was busy right now as he was getting some reading done. Because of the efforts in reconstructing the hidden village in the leaves, there were no missions being performed with the exception of scouting routines performed by the Anbu forces, so the man was stuck with nothing to do but to maintain his much appreciated hobby. That was until the village's latest hero appeared right in front of him. Kakashi's opinion of Naruto was already high considering how easily Naruto managed to master wind manipulation, as well as the fact that every obstacle he put his mind to, he managed to solve it better than any Kage ever could. Also, he alone managed to beat pain when the entire village, including the Godime Hokage and member of the Sannin, failed to accomplish. However, even with all these accomplishments on his record, Naruto was rather predictable in Kakashi's opinion. Every time his student came looking for him, it was either to get some training or some cool mission to participate in. Kakashi-sensei, there you are, I was looking for you, shouted Naruto as he landed in front of the lazy Jonin, taking Kakashi's attention away from his novel. Anyo, Kakashi-sensei, I was hoping that you could give me some tips, you know, about how to improve on my wind manipulation. Nature chakra is strong and valuable, but I don't want to depend on it the entire time. Kakashi put his book inside his holster, before holding his chin with his hand in a thinking position. Certainly, you could use a couple of techniques with your style of fighting. However, you're out of luck as I don't happen to know much about Fuden jutsus. You could maybe check inside the temporary library for any scrolls, Kakashi said, as he saw Naruto with a thinking pose as well. The blonde was considering against going to the library, though reading just wasn't his style, not only because he rarely did it, but also because he felt it would be a waste of time that he could use training. Nevertheless, this time no matter how much he bothered Kakashi, it wouldn't solve the issue considering that his sensei knew next to nothing about Fuden jutsus. Naruto was considering his alternatives. As of now, anyone he went to for advice in the ninjutsu department would know next to nothing about Fuden manipulation. Yamato's affinities were earth and water, while Kakashi was a lightning user who copied over 1,000 jutsus, either fire, earth, water or lightning. He considered summoning Gamakichi and asking him if one of the toads happened to know about Fuden techniques, but Naruto figured it was high time he step inside a library for a change. Thanks Kakashi-sensei for the tip. I guess it's time I enter inside that hateful place where people do nothing but sit in a chair and read all day. It's boring, but I'll sure as hell go there if it means getting some training. See ya, Naruto said as he turned his back to his sensei and ran towards the temporary library which was located at a stairway just below the Hokage mountain. Actually, this place happened to keep a copy of the entire main library's archive. Problem was that with the entire village now reduced to rubble, the temporary library had now become the main library as it contained records from the village's creation. Certainly, Naruto would be able to find an extensive repertoire of wind jutsus to choose from. He may even be able to learn some level of wind manipulation he was ignorant about. While he ran towards the library, Kakashi was looking at his disappearing figure when suddenly another Junin approached Kakashi, wearing a bandana and carrying a toothpick between his teeth. Shiranui Genma was considered a Tokubetsu Junin, but he wore the same outfit that a full Junin. The man heard the entire conversation between student and teacher and he smiled upon reaching Kakashi. You know you could just tell him to come to me, right? Genma did possess a wind affinity. Kakashi though smiled, before returning to his all-time favorite book. Naruto surpassed me a long time ago Genma, even though in rank he's just a genin. He has nature chakra at his disposal and a couple of techniques that only he can perform. Plus, it's high time he learned how to look out for valuable information instead of always asking someone for pointers. However, if you feel like aiding him through his training, then by all means be my guest. Either way, I am sure he'll be able to master anything he sets his mind to. Genma was already predisposed to agree with the silver-haired Junin, but even though Naruto did manage to beat Pain, it was common knowledge that he could use certain improvements in the thinking department. Certainly, you're overestimating your student Kakashi-senpai. Even though he managed to beat Akatsuki, this is be just as difficult. Mastering wind manipulation alone is one thing, but learning wind jutsus is a feat I don't believe he's capable of. Kakashi just shrugged it off. The special Jonin's doubts were of little concern of his. He started walking away. Well, he certainly has a large amount of time at his disposal, that's for sure. Snorting at such a vague response, Genma switched the side he was chewing his toothpick and placed both hands inside his pockets as he looked at Kakashi. What's that supposed to mean? Genma asked, but now it fell on deaf ears, as Kakashi was now out of hearing range. Either way, Kakashi spiked the bandana man's interest in the blonde's method of training. He just didn't have the time to worry about this though, as the village needed all the help it could get to be rebuilt. Relinquishing his interest in Naruto, Genma vanished with a shunshin to where his team would soon begin a mission towards Spring Country. Behind a nearby tree, Kakashi looked at the man's previous position. Before smiling as he knew Genma was known for his never-ending curiosity and if the village wasn't in total ruins, maybe he would follow Naruto wherever he went in order to see just what the silver-haired Jonin meant by Naruto having a large amount of time at his disposal. Kakashi was sure that whichever jutsu Naruto learned from the library, he would manage to learn very quickly well on his own using a few dozen kage bunshin. Certainly, he would know once the blonde started practicing it. He knew he would soon start sensing a major drift in wind followed by some small typhoons, as someone with Naruto's chakra could very well create a fierce hurricane and not even feel the chakra strain. At the village's border Deciding to rest a bit before entering the hidden village in the leaves were three ninjas from the hidden village in the clouds. Samui, Omoi and Karui were called by the Raikage for a mission to Konoha regarding one single purpose. Their mission involved convincing the Hokage to dispose of Uchiha Sasuke as a missing nin as well as get every piece of information regarding the last Uchiha for future hunting. Samui was the team leader as her presence alone exuded confidence, blonde hair and brown eyes. Her short leather outfit was enough to make a man go crazy just by looking. Omoi and Karui happened to be part of the same team since graduation, and they shared the same master, the Hachibi Jinchuriki Killer Bee. Both of them shared the same level of skills with a katana, but the similarities ended there. Omoi was a ladies' man, and his outfit didn't strike out of the ordinary with bare black pants and a light coat. Covered by Kumo's Jonin vest, the man had a special hobby of getting a rise out of his teammates by stating the possibility of Konoha's female population getting too infatuated with his looks, which would force him to decide between so many beautiful ladies. Out of the two, Karui was the one that was more affected by her partner's taunts. But that could easily mean something happened in the past between the two. Karui's physical attributes tended to lack in comparison to Samui, and just like Omoi, her outfit was rather normal with a bandana holding her black hair. After seeing her, one could describe her as a bit of a tomboy, but her feminine way of thinking was still present as the girl caught on Omoi's taunt of her finding a man to be with while in Konoha, which made her blush at the thought. As the two taunted each other, the team leader Samui could only sigh as she was wasting her time with these two. Reikage-sama instructed them to meet him at the Cage Summit that would occur in Iron Country, so she didn't have much time as she still had to converse with the Hokage and gather as much information as possible on Sasuke Uchiha. As the team walked a bit more, it was becoming plainly visible that something happened in Konoha. Something devastating had occurred if the destruction before them was any indication. As they walked around the debris, the team as a whole was wondering what the hell happened that managed to bring the entire village to the ground. Seeing a Konoha shinobi, Samui asked what happened, only to hear that Akatsuki tried to attack the village in search for the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The name Pain reached the beautiful woman's ears and she flinched upon hearing that he was the leader of the organization. However, what struck her as rather amazing was the fact that one individual by the name of Naruto managed to defeat this powerful opponent single-handedly. "By the way," said the Chunin, as he looked at the ninja's headbands, "why is Kumo here of all places?" "We were sent by the Yondaime Reikage to relay a message to Hokage-sama personally. Could you perhaps show us where we can find the Hokage? It's rather urgent." At Fire Country's capital A few miles away from the destroyed village was located Fire Country's capital city, where businesses from the entire country converged. Right after the news behind Konoha's destruction reached the Fire Daimyo, the man issued an emergency meeting as he called the most important and influential minds that Konoha had at its disposal at the moment. Those were old Hiruzen Sarutobi's teammates Homura and Kaharu, the ex-leader of the Anbu Black Ops and hidden leader of the Root Anbu Danzo, and Nara Shikaku as the village's major tactician and the head of the Anbu forces. The meeting was being held inside the daimyo's private property as the content being discussed could not leave the room. Inside, a large table was seen as Konoha's representatives were on the right side, while the daimyo's highest officials remained on the left side, with the Fire Lord seating on his throne, positioned in the middle. Right now, they were discussing the funds that would be used in order to finance the village's reconstruction. Akatsuki happened to be common knowledge by now, and the officials understood their power. All was going well as the matters were being dealt without much difficulty. Nara Shikaku, though, remained silent as he looked at the old war hawk Danzo with severe scrutiny. The man wasn't alien to Danzo's political skills in turning the table to his favor, and as such, he was here in order to prevent Danzo from controlling the situation in the Hokage's behalf. Shikaku knew Homura and Kaharu wouldn't mind favoring Danzo in whatever issue he brought forward, and he knew that Danzo was aware of said hidden advantage. It was because of this that Shikaku widened his eyes when the War Hawk brought forth an issue of nominating a Rokudaime Hokage. The Fire Lord showed reluctance to discuss said issue, considering that he believed Tsunade to wake up from her coma momentarily, but both Homura and Kaharu explained Tsunade's case and some medical report that showed minimal probability that the Shodaime's granddaughter would awaken soon, if ever. He knew that whoever's name popped up first would be nominated the Rokudaime Hokage, hence why he took the liberty to give his assessment of who should be the next Hokage. Daimyo-sama, Shikaku said, alerting everyone's attention to what he wanted to say, as well as Danzo, as he slightly opened his visible eye and looked Shikaku. The old war hawk silently cursed the man for being there and attempting to ruin all his plans. As the head of the Nara clan got the room's entire attention, he spoke once more. "I for one agree with you, Daimyo-sama, in regards to Tsunade's recovery. However, considering the issue brought forward by Danzo, I feel only one person is now adequate for the Hokage position. He fought many wars under the Sandaime and Yondaime Hokage, and was a student under the yellow flash of Konoha. Therefore, I propose Hatake Kakashi to be nominated as Rokudaime Hokage. The daimyo smiled and opened his masterly crafted fan. He used it to withstand the usual hot temperature of Fire Country, before he looked to his subordinates. The son of the White Fang. Yes, he's become quite famous throughout the lands as Sharingan no Kakashi. One of his advisors turned to his group and wondered if perhaps Kakashi would be too young to take the job. While another reasoned that Minato was even younger when he took the job as Yondaime. Meanwhile, Danzo was glaring daggers at the smiling Shikaku. His plan was simple, yet ingenious. He got both Kaharu and Homura backing him up in every step of the way, so the only thing he needed to do was to nominate himself as Hokage and let the two vouch for him. Now he would be forced to reveal the big guns in this very meeting. It was because of the Sandaime Hokage's foolish beliefs that the village is in ruins right now. Danzo said, stopping the discussion as all eyes fell on him for a while. It was his and his pupils' failures that resulted in the village's destruction. Akatsuki's leader, the man who destroyed the village, was once Jiraiya's pupil. This is the result of sympathizing with other countries and giving them power. This sort of thinking is weak. It led to San's betrayal and Orochimaru's plan to invade the village 3 years ago. It also led to Akatsuki's formation and to Uchiha Sasuke, the last remaining Uchiha, leaving the village for his secret purposes. We need a Hokage that puts an end to this way of thinking, and that man is me. As Danzo shouted his reasons, the daimyo's advisors remained in silence as they pondered the information now revealed. It was all true in their mind. However, none of these advisors were completely by Danzo's side. Considering that there was a requirement for being the daimyo's trusting advisor, and that happened to be full knowledge of history. Beginning at the village's constitution when Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara founded the village almost 100 years ago, Shikaku was by this time ready to verbalize his protest by saying that such fanaticism would destroy the village in the future. But from the looks of the advisors and the Fire Lord himself, Danzo's arguments weren't that much convincing. The Fire Lord started explaining the reasons regarding his already made decision. Indeed, the Sanin's acts were partially responsible for the situation this village is now in. However, I fail to comprehend how the vile acts of Orochimaru serve as undermining my old friend Sarutobi's rule as Hokage as well as his successor. Namikaze Minato, you do well to remember, Danzo, that Sarutobi was the pupil of both the Shodaime and the Nadaime Hokage, as both of them felt that Hiruzen was to be the Sandaime Hokage. Under him, it's within my knowledge that the village endured itself in times of tribulation. The two great ninja wars, the Sand Sound invasion, all of them only served to prove that Konoha needs someone to whom both the third and fourth Hokage entrusted their knowledge to, and that happens to be the son of the White Fang, Hatake Kakashi. The daimyo's positioning couldn't be better in Shikaku's opinion, as the Fire Lord happened to be a great friend of Hiruzen Sarutobi. Danzo, though, snarled as he took a seating once more. He could do nothing but listen as he heard the Fire Lord's final decision to nominate Hatake Kakashi for the position of Rokudaime Hokage. The constant sound caused by the IV monitor was the only sound that could be heard inside the tent where Tsunade was located. Along with Shizune and Sakura, both of the Hokage's apprentices were tired. They were used to the stress of being awakened long hours through the entire hospital routine, but their current predicament couldn't be counted as such. The patient was the Godaime Hokage of Konoha. Not only that, but because of the situation the village was now facing, both figured sleeping would be a waste of their time. Right now, they were looking at the sleeping figure of the Hokage, when the tent's entrance jerked open, surprising the two medic nins. One Chunin from the village entered, and behind him was 3 other shinobi. Upon looking at the headband from Kumogakure, Shizune became alert. Usually, this meant diplomatic relationships, and since Tsunade was bedridden, she figured she would have to deal with it. Excuse me, Shizune-san, but these shinobi from Kumo wish to deliver a letter to the Hokage. Shizune nodded as she looked at the big-breasted Kunoichi, figuring she would be the group leader from her posture and the fact that she was in front of the other two. "I'll take that, Shinta-san. You can return to your post," Shizune said, before the Chunin nodded and left. "Now, Kumo shinobi, I am afraid that the Hokage is unconscious, but I can take the letter in her stead." Samui nodded and was about to handle the scroll when a familiar person soon joined the party. "Leave it to me, Shizune," Kakashi said, alerting everyone inside the tent as the sudden implication as to why an elite Junin would declare himself responsible for Kumo's letter. "The council had just elected me as the Rokudaime Hokage. Now, I am wondering what Kuma wants with us, as Kakashi took the scroll. Both Sakura and Shizune wondered why the council elected a new Hokage. When Tsunade was still due to recover, however, at least it was Kakashi and not someone who could cause a lot of trouble for the village. Back to Kakashi, he was maintaining a stoic visage as he read the contents of the scroll. Regarding Kumogakure's intentions for the next couple of days, because of the Eight Tails Jinchuriki's capture by Akatsuki, the Raikage was summoning the 5 village cages for a meeting that will occur in Iron Country 5 days from now. The subject was the organization responsible for kidnapping the Jinchuriki and a possible joining of forces to stop them for good, and Kakashi was fine with that. The only problem was the last request, declaring Uchiha Sasuke a missing nin. Kakashi was surprised that Sasuke would side with Akatsuki, as he now understood the Sandaime Hokage regarding Orochimaru. As his sensei, it fell upon him the responsibility, but Kumogakure was angry with him and they were after blood. No matter what he thought now as Hokage, he just couldn't avoid it. The man just hoped no one would think ill of him for what he had to do for the good of the village. Sasuke was with Akatsuki now, and as such, he was a part of the organization that was after Naruto, meaning he now became a threat to Konoha. Sorry Sasuke, but you knew the consequences of your actions. Tell the Raikage I'll attend the summons meeting in Iron Country, and that is of now. Uchiha Sasuke is declared a missing nin. You 3 can pick any information about him in our library, and Anbu will be there to assist you. Sakura and Shizune both lost their breaths at the sudden announcement. However, while Shizune recovered her thoughts, Sakura was trembling as she looked at her sensei and wondered why he would do something like this. Kakashi saw Sakura's shock as the Kumo ninjas left towards the library. What happened? Shizune asked, alerting Kakashi. The Hachibi Jinchuriki was captured by Akatsuki and, according to Kumogakure, the one responsible for his capture was none other than Sasuke. Sakura, I understand you're shocked at my actions, and I understand how much both you and Naruto asked the Godime not to place Sasuke as a missing nin. But his actions not only damaged us, but another village as well. The Raikage wants revenge for his brother's kidnapping. I just couldn't place Konoha in such a sensitive position. He knew Sakura was a smart girl, and in little time, she would understand his reasons, eventually. Still, Kakashi wondered how Naruto would swallow this news. The man sighed for a bit, before vanishing within a shunshin towards the tent where a temporary office was located. He had a lot on his mind as he had to study the meeting that would occur in 5 days' time. He also read the report of Konoha's reconstruction. Supplies from foreign countries would arrive later, and Kakashi needed to correctly distribute the necessary material in order to better rebuild the vital buildings, like the academy, the hospital and the library. The clan buildings would follow next, as well as the houses that would accommodate both shinobi and civilian population. At the library . Not knowing about the decision concerning his teammate, Naruto opened the door to the doom, as he called it. The library was currently filled with intellectual individuals who sought nothing but knowledge. Some belonged to this place, others didn't, and Naruto definitely believed he did not. To this day, he knew that reading book was unnecessary. What he needed to know, he would learn in the field. However, it came as a realization that he lacked skills and techniques in the midst of battle. Sure, cage bunchins were extremely useful and the Rasengan techniques could cause a lot of damage, but if he were to fight against someone with prior knowledge of his skills, he would be screwed big time. Sage mode and the Kyuubi's chakra just could not be used all the time. Both were extremely counterproductive, since Sage mode had a limit of time it could be used, and when using the Kyuubi's chakra, he would lose his mind and attack anyone, friend or foe. So, why not invest in something he already knew, besides all his existing skills? That being said, he asked for every book available regarding wind manipulation to the clerk, who, by the way, surprisingly so, was very eager to help him because of Naruto's victory over Pain. 10 years ago, this very man kicked Naruto out of the main library, and now he was nothing but kind. Naruto smiled, nonetheless, at the man's kindness in helping him. It wouldn't do well to start antagonizing everyone based on past pretenses. 2 hours later, and hidden in the last wooden table, the Naruto became surrounded by tons of books and scrolls on wind manipulation. Much of what was written there was what Kakashi-sensei and Asuma-sensei instructed him to do. However, he wasn't looking to better improve his wind manipulation, but rather techniques to incorporate to his arsenal. So far, he couldn't find anything of interest, as creating whirlwinds and giant typhoons just wasn't his thing. Naruto was a close to mid-range fighter. That much he knew. Sure, he had to use a couple long-range techniques, since not everyone would maintain close proximity while fighting. Kakashi-sensei, for instance, used only long-range techniques against him, which kept him at a safe distance. Picking up 2 techniques from the wide variety available, he opened an empty scroll and started taking notes about some techniques he could learn. Fuden Daitapa, Wind Release. Great Breakthrough Jutsu. Fuden K's Angetsu, Wind Release. Crescent Moon Wind Jutsu. Fuden Arashi no Tsurugi, Wind Release. Storm of Blades Jutsu. These 3 techniques caught the blonde's interest not only because of the names themselves, which were awesome by the way, but also because of their description. The first one was a huge blast of wind, plain and simple. But the second one was more interesting. It was based on the molding a wind bow with the shape of a crescent moon. Normally, a technique of this sort wouldn't be easy to tame, but according to the book, Naruto would have to use a considerable amount of wind chakra to stabilize the bow's trajectory, otherwise it would fly away uncontrollably. The third one was a storm of wind blades thrown against the approaching opponent. By doing the necessary hand seals, Naruto could mold several wind swords and propel them simultaneously towards his opponent. Sure, all of them were killing attacks, but all his techniques with the exception of the Cage Bunshin, were meant to kill. However, he had yet to kill someone with this techniques, as everyone he ever faced was either indestructible or simply wouldn't die even after being hit like Kabuto and Kakuzu. He wrote the details and the hand signs necessary. Before moving on, he guessed one defensive jutsu would be sufficient as he found one that caught his interest as well, before writing it down. Fuden Shippu Shoheki, Wind Release. Hurricane Barrier Jutsu. 2 hours later, Naruto was rubbing his temples from the headache that soon appeared. He was about to quit for the day and eat some well-deserved Ichiraku ramen when a book fell on the ground. Surprising Naruto, he grabbed the book from the ground and decided to take a look at the title. The Art of Vacuum Manipulation. As he read the first page, he was surprised that vacuum manipulation was an advanced form of wind manipulation, albeit more condensed and much more refined. It was specific for close-range fighting, which was perfect for Naruto. He took a look at who wrote the book before he saw, in surprise, Danzas' name written at the end of the page. Naruto was certain he heard the name before both from Ero Sennin and Tsunade, as both warned him never to mess with this man. Well, it's not like I am messing with him. He'll just learn this vacuum manipulation thing. With that, Naruto started reading the book with great interest as the author was very descriptive about the nature of vacuum and its uses. Naruto's attention was 100% on the book as he flipped through the pages, not even realizing that it was already night time outside. Figuring he could finish in his temporary tent, Naruto returned the scrolls where they belonged. Before he left the place with his scroll as well as Danzas' book on vacuum manipulation. As he went to his tent, thoughts of the rogue teammate came to mind. Every time he was on the brink of getting stronger, he could not help but visualize Sasuke ahead of him as a constant obstacle he needed to surpass. A couple of interesting facts that Naruto learned while reading about Fuden Jutsus was that wind element is weak against fire. However, wind is victorious against lightning. Sasuke's both affinities, as he recalled, were strong, but regarding fire jutsus the blonde never had any difficulty dodging them. Naruto had a big smile on his face as he imagined Sasuke's Chidori being blown away by a gust of wind from Naruto. With Sakura In the midst of a busy population, Sakura ran like never before, trying to find her teammate. The news of their sensei being the next Hokage and the fact that said man just nominated Sasuke a missing nin was starting to overwhelm Sakura's brain. Sure, Sasuke went too far with his rage against his brother and kidnapping the Raikage's brother, the eight-tailed Jinchuriki. But if he was a missing nin, then Kumogakure would certainly kill him and send the head on a silver platter to Kakashi-sensei. Sakura wanted to find Naruto so badly, because up till now, the only person who wished no harm to the Uchiha was Sakura. Every member of their generation voted against helping the Uchiha traitor. As they said, even Ino, to whom Sakura believed would side with her, started crying. At first, Sakura was sympathetic with the Yamanaka for her grief of Sasuke, but as soon as Ino managed to speak between sobs, Sakura changed her mind about Ino. And, to think, I had a crush in that bastard, in the academy. What Ino said as well. About Sasuke being in the same group that was hunting all Jinchurikis like Naruto, stuck a chord inside Sakura. In her mind, Sasuke and Naruto were dead rivals, but she saw them as friends as well. How could Sasuke join Akatsuki, she wondered. Wasn't he so fixated in killing his brother and getting his revenge? Why didn't he return to the village, then? Why would he choose to join the group who just about leveled Konoha entirely? All these thoughts were now in her brain as she looked for Naruto. But the funny thing was that Naruto couldn't be found anywhere. She went to Ichiraku's, to all the temporary training grounds, every place that Naruto could have gone to, but she couldn't find him. It was already night time. Maybe he would be at his tent by now, Sakura wondered. However, upon getting inside, all she saw was an oil lamp and a kept futon, all but waiting for Naruto to arrive. Where is that idiot? Sakura cursed, before she jumped away, heading for another sector to find him. However, if she chose to stay 10 seconds longer, she would see Naruto approach with some scrolls and a book. Before throwing everything inside his tent, he would read the rest of the book and then rest up for tomorrow. He needed to train what he had learned. He just hoped that Yamato Taiko didn't need him with the village's reconstruction, though. Next day . The sun was just rising, but by the constant noises echoing throughout the field, the contractors hired by the Fire Lord wanted a head start on building a couple buildings that would be detrimental for Konoha's well-being, like the academy, the hospital, the Hokage's tower and even a new library. All of the contractors were focusing on these 4 buildings, since one man alone could handle the living quarters for the population. This man's name was Yamato. Mokuden Renshuka no Jutsu would release, combined pillar homes jutsu. As soon as Yamato slammed his hands on the ground, house after house started to grow from both sides of the street, earning cheers from the chunins behind him. Yamato, though, was panting for breath as this technique took a great toll on him. Though with a constant supply of chakra pills on his pocket, Yamato was prepared to build an entire section of houses today. As soon as he turned to meet his new task, Naruto appeared in front of the chunin. Yamato Taiko, you started early today. Do you have anything for me? The former Anbu captain smiled and nodded as he pointed to a certain direction. As Naruto turned, he was surprised to see nothing but rubble as a few construction sites were in the way. Yamato needed someone to move everything aside for him to do his technique all over again. Demolition time. Naruto, gather a group of cage bunchins and swipe this area clean. I need it leveled for my technique to work. Right on it, Yamato Taiko, shouted Naruto as he summoned 50 cage bunchins and sent them running throughout the path with Rasengans already charged. Much to everyone's astonishment at the quantity of chakra needed just to maintain the clones, let alone allow every one of them to perform the Rasengan. Soon, a great number of explosions shook the ground once more as Naruto and his clones dealt with the street demolition. Half an hour later, the street was clean for Yamato to utilize his technique and create a replica of the first street. Of course, these houses were just sketches for the future Konoha they were building. After they were up, a new group of contractors would come and modernize the place. Yamato's job was only to gather the wood and create the building. Turning to Naruto, he smiled at the scrolls behind him. I guess he's going to train today. Well, I guess I don't need him anymore here. Naruto, we're done here. You can do whatever you wish. As Naruto followed the captain's line of sight, he showed a broad smile, before jumping towards one of the temporary training grounds that Konoha could use. A training ground . Once Naruto arrived at the designated spot, he took a moment to survey his surroundings to make sure no one was there. It was important to him that no one saw what he was doing right now, especially since people were busy helping as much as they could while he wanted to increase his skills. Still, he figured that he helped Yamato a lot. Also, Konoha right now was as vulnerable as Iwa was after the Third Great Ninja War, which meant that any village could come and take over the place. It's good to have a couple of new skills to use if such a thing happened. Right now, the information he collected from the books and scrolls were firm in his mind. From the constant usage of Cage Bunshin's reading everything at least twice, if the headache was anything to go by, Naruto was certain that he was able to grasp the general concept of wind jutsus and how to properly perform them. Right now, 4 jutsus were on his wish list to learn today, since he had yet to fully grasp the real difference between wind manipulation and vacuum, but he had time to grasp this knowledge later on. At least, With these 4 techniques, I have more to show against my opponents instead of Kage Bunshin and Rasengans here and there, Naruto thought. Wasting no more time, Naruto placed the scrolls on the ground. Before joining his hands in a familiar hand seal for the multiple Kage Bunshin technique. Instantly, the area was filled with smoke, in an instant. 100 Narutos appeared, the original looked at his assembled army and smirked. It was now time to consider his strategy, either he could use all of them for one jutsu at a time or separate them into groups for each technique. The former was better and wouldn't cause much of a headache, so Naruto settled to train the first technique he learned from the scrolls, named Fuden Daitapa, Wind Release. Great Breakthrough Jutsu. The technique was simple to learn, but the real deal was knowing the exact amount of chakra for it to work. Use too much and it could escape the user's control, use too little and nothing but a short breeze would be created. Then, as if the clones' minds were hooked to the real one, all of them started to practice the techniques using the information gathered by the real Naruto, meaning the hand signs and the jutsu description. Meanwhile, the real one would do something else instead. Senjutsu was really useful in battle as it not only increased speed but strength as well, so he wanted to practice more with it. Also, the fact that he could do the complete Rasenshuriken while in Sage mode really perked his interest regarding other jutsus that could be used. As he watched the clones attempting the Great Breakthrough technique, Naruto closed his eyes to meditate and focus on nature energy. In no time at all, chakra from all sides reached up to him as he continued his focus. He could feel his eyes changing as his awareness to things around him increased. When he opened his eyes, they now looked similar to the toads. Doing his first experimentation, Naruto extended his arm, before looking at the palm of his hand. Because he managed to throw the Rasen Shuriken, he figured that he could focus on the Rasengan using one hand first, and just as he theorized, the blue ball of energy started its creation, before being contained in Naruto's hand. The first one he managed now was the other hand, as he had an idea he wished to try, and to his amazement, he was able to perform a double Rasengan. Now, the test would begin, he thought. His idea was to incorporate the wind element to both Rasengans as 2 Kage Bunshins appeared in front of him and each of them added the wind element to one spiraling ball. The experiment succeeded as Naruto now looked at the 2 wind Rasengans in each hand. It was different in the midst of battle against pain, as he wanted nothing more than to win the battle and save Konoha. Now, no one was threatening his loved ones. No one was placing a kunai near his neck. He wasn't in a life or death situation, hence why simply maintaining the 2 wind Rasengans was incredibly arduous. Nevertheless, he had a new jutsu under his arsenal called Fuden Rasen Rengen, Wind Release, Double Wind Rasengan Jutsu. With a smile on his face, he let go of his control over the technique just as the Sage mode was over. One of the reasons why Naruto wanted more techniques to learn was because Sage mode could only get him so far. It was to be used only in desperate situations or with a partner aiding you. The original Naruto looked up in alarm, before a strong gust of wind charged at him, sending him flying towards a small river. Because of this, the focus over the clones all but extinguished, and one by one, they vanished. As Naruto exited the river, he was grabbing his head to ease the pain as he cursed the clone who attacked him. However, once the pain was gone, the information went inside and Naruto smiled. Seeing that the technique he was hit was the one he sent his clones to practice. Now alone on the training ground, Naruto did a sequence of 4 hand seals. Before gathering as much air as he could, he exhaled a thin line of air and expanded it using chakra. The force of the technique was so strong that Naruto managed to yank a few trees. Even though he knew summoning clones over and over again was taxing on his part, if he wanted to learn all 4 techniques, he would need their help. Taking a minute, Naruto summoned the same number of clones. He couldn't do this once more, so these clones would have to be enough. Okay, now we have 3 techniques to learn and I don't have enough chakra to summon more clones, at least not today, so, let's split in 3 groups. I believe all of you have the information needed for the techniques. Well, divide in 3 groups of 30 each. Each group will focus on one technique, while the other 10 will attack me. Instantly, 100 pair of cerulean eyes blinked once. What, is there something on my face? The real Naruto asked, but one of the clones stepped up and asked why he wanted them to attack him at once. Naruto smiled and explained to them that this wasn't only a ninjutsu training, but also close-range fighting, that served for the clones as the 10 that stood in front of Naruto charged instantly. Grabbing 2 kunais, one in each hand, Naruto managed to kill 2 that were faster, before dodging a third's flying kick, while 3 others charged at him, throwing shuriken. One of the projectiles passed near him, but he managed to dodge them all. Before charging at the closest clone, focusing wind chakra through one of the kunai. He threw it at the clone, before the kunai pierced the clone's body. The kunai went flying towards a tree where it stayed lodged, while Naruto dealt with the rest. Charging against 2 clones, Naruto managed to punch one in the face, which was enough for him to vanish, but he was wide open for a brutal assault from the other clone as he landed a fierce kick on Naruto's stomach. The real one was short of breath, but he looked back to realize the remaining 3 was about to attack him at the same time. Despite the sudden loss of air, Naruto managed to gather enough for a short breeze of air as he made some hand seals. Fuden Daitapa no Jutsu, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough Jutsu. While it wasn't strong as before, the bunchins vanished, before Naruto landed a kick on the last clone's chin. Getting up from the ground, Naruto gathered the memory of the 10 clones. Sadly, he could see major openings in his stance that needed to be fixed. He would need to improve his taijutsu skill, that's for sure. Looking at the first group of clones, he was surprised to see how easy it was to do the Keizengetsu technique. Naruto wondered how tough it would be using the slicing capabilities of wind jutsus, but apparently it wasn't all that hard as he looked to the group with the Arashi no Tsurugi technique. Just by looking at the technique, Naruto was drooling in excitement. The group that was training with the Hurricane Barrier technique was taking a little longer to perform the technique. But Naruto wasn't in any rush as he considered this level of training and how much he could improve. Taijutsu, speed, chakra control training, wind techniques. Everything was within his reach now as he dispelled the first 2 groups of clones. While letting the last one complete the third technique, as he waited, he decided on some chakra control exercises that would do him good. Taking his jacket and t-shirt off, Naruto took a seat in a meditation position on top of the river. Closing his eyes, he remembered his old sensei Jiraiya and the time when he taught this exercise to him. At the time, Naruto couldn't find himself to stay on top of the water, much to Jiraiya's laughter. Now, as he closed his eyes and focused on letting his chakra flow through all his tenketsus, Naruto smiled at how much Jiraiya laughed at him back then. Naruto missed the guy like crazy, but he knew that Ero Sennin wouldn't want him to wallow in misery over his death, but rather enjoy those happy memories both shared upon their journey together. One memory was fresh in his mind, about the time where he and Jiraiya discussed about Sasuke and Orochimaru and what happened to Orochimaru for him to want revenge against Konoha. Jiraiya, at the time, said he had a wish that people would understand each other in the future and that he would work hard to find a way. He also said that if he couldn't find it, then certainly Naruto would. Certainly, I can't say that I made it, Ero Sannin, your wish I mean. I know you saw what happened to Konoha, but in the end it all worked out for the best and we escaped alive. I just hope I can better protect Konoha in the future. Naruto didn't realize how much time had passed since he initiated the meditation exercise. It was night time by the time he opened his eyes, but training was not done. With Kakashi . While revising a few documents, Kakashi had a moment to breathe a little as this Hokage job was really stressful. He started only a few days ago and he felt like he'd been doing it for years non-stop. It was starting to become troublesome as for the first time Kakashi had to focus on everything all the time. Signaling for an Anbu to approach, Kakashi looked forward to see the Tori-masked Anbu kneeling in front of an improvised desk. Report Tori, how is Tsunade-sama's tent so far? Kakashi knew that Danzo would attempt something against Konoha and, right now, he knew the worst damage the man could do was an attempt on the Godime Hokage's life. After all, Tsunade was in a coma and the only one guarding her was Shizune since Sakura was full-time covering the hospital for the wounded. Therefore, he selected a team of Anbu to watch the tent from the shadows, just in case any of Danzo's root Anbu tried something. You were right, Hokage-sama. At 0800, 2 of Danzo's root members were seen observing the tent. They appeared like regular Anbu, but after checking with the command, I was informed that no other Anbu team was ordered to watch Tsunade-sama's tent. Kakashi nodded. His hunch was right and Danzo wanted to harm Tsunade, but the information alone wouldn't do him much good. In a short while, he would need to leave for Iron Country where the cage meeting would take place. So, he needed to do something to ensure Tsunade's safety. Looking for some documents on his desk, he saw a letter from Suna promising to help with anything Konoha needed when an idea popped in his mind. "Tori, I have an S-ranked assignment for your team," Kakashi said, before Tori looked at the Hokage. "You will be responsible for escorting Tsunade-sama to Sunagaku. I'll send a letter to Gaara right away and explain the situation. Also, tell Shizune to accompany your team, seeing as she's the leading physician treating Tsunade. I can't stress how important this mission is. Tori, use discretion when leaving the village at night, do you understand?" "Loud and clear, Hokage-sama. Don't worry, Tsunade-sama's safety is our top priority," Tori said, before vanishing within a swirl of leaves. Kakashi rubbed his nose a bit, before he finished the letter to his assigned second-in-command Nara Shikaku. While in his absence, Shikaku would be giving the necessary orders to begin Konoha's reconstruction. He also finished the letter to Gaara, before he called for a Chunin to send it to Suna via one of Konoha's fastest hawks. After both letters were sent, Kakashi sighed in anticipation to what he was about to do. He had to assign 2 bodyguards that would accompany him towards Iron Country, and no matter how much he wished against calling those 2, they were the best choices. Yamato would be a wise choice. Even Guy was a name to be considered, and that was saying much in Kakashi's opinion, but something of this magnitude called for heavy artillery. "Hawk, Eagle, please show yourselves." Instantly, 2 hurricanes appeared in front of Kakashi as a deep and strong voice echoed throughout the office. "So, to believe they made you into the Rokudaime Hokage, I never thought I'd take orders from you again, Kakashi." After the wind subsided, 2 Anbu appeared with their arms crossed. The bulky one on the left side and the one who addressed Kakashi wore the Hawk mask. The little one on the right side, although smaller in size than Hawk, was the same size as Kakashi. The reason for Kakashi's reluctance in calling these 2 was for the very fact that they were a part of his Anbu team under his command. He was only 13 at the time, hence it was hard to exercise leadership with these 2 wild cards. "Yeah, they chose me. It was odd to me as well, but they did. Now I chose you 2 to accompany me at the Cage Summit in Iron Country. However, you guys have to take off your masks. Both of you will have codenames. Hawk will be Kika's Strong Wind, and Eagle will be Katoke's Cutting Wind. Hawk, though, wasn't very enthused about following orders once more from Kakashi, but right now he was the Hokage and the damn tattoo on their forearm meant total devotion to the Hokage. With Sasuke . Seeing the moon up in the sky, Sasuke and his team decided to camp for the day and proceed towards Konoha tomorrow. Now that Sasuke knew the truth behind the Uchiha massacre, he had 3 targets in mind for his vengeance. It would be 4 if the Sandaime Hokage was still alive, since he was the one that forced Itachi to murder the Uchiha clan, all for the good of the village. Sasuke would have spit at the old man if he was in Itachi's place. Sasuke was after 3 names that knew about Itachi's hidden mission. The Hokage's advisors and Danzo. As the camp was set, a sudden vortex appeared out of nowhere. Before Madara showed himself, the voice that followed spoke much disappointment for the elder Uchiha as he expected more of Sasuke. "I didn't expect you to betray me, Sasuke. You know the penalty for treason, do you not?" Instantly Sasuke's Sharingan was activated as he looked at Madara. In his right mind, he already did Akatsuki's dirty work, capturing the Hachibi. So, what does Madara mean by treason? He wondered. As far as he knew, he had no reason to stay with this organization any longer. "I already captured the 8-tailed beast for you. What more do you expect from me? I have my own vengeance to take care of. You willingly submitted to the organization, therefore you are under my command only. Not only have you betrayed me by leaving without my consent, but also you failed to capture the Hachibi. Just so you know, I don't take treason lightly." Immediately every member of the Team Taka looked at Madara regarding his last comment. They all saw the Hachibi being consumed by Sasuke's Amaterasu. Sasuke, though, maintained eye contact with the man in front of him. He had no delusions about beating this guy if not even the Amaterasu worked on him. Suddenly, next to Madara, a plant emerged from the ground, before opening to reveal Madara's partner Zetsu. Hatake Kakashi was named Rokudaime Hokage and he's leaving tomorrow morning to the Cage Summit in Iron Country. Madara nodded, being surprised that Danzo wasn't nominated. However, it wasn't relevant who would become Hokage or not. "Sasuke," called Madara, before the young Uchiha turned to address him, "your team is loyal to Akatsuki as I expect it to be. so your team will follow Zetsu here and go to the cage summit that will happen in 3 days. Your mission is to attack the 5 cages. The younger Uchiha cursed the man for keeping him away from Konoha, but nodded. Konoha would fall and by his hands. Unknown location . On the surface, Konoha looked like an abandoned city. But below ground it was a different story. Upon descent through a long set of stairs, one could see an entirely different city, built in order to accommodate a different faction of Anbu shinobi. As Danzo finished the last set of stairs, all his loyal Anbu were kneeling in front of him, all waiting for his order. Danzo knew Kakashi was onto him. 2 incompetent shinobi just couldn't even investigate the Hokage's tent without being seen. Their penalty was a painless death, simply by seal activation from Danzo. Danzo-sama, what are your orders? One of his most trustworthy Anbu, Yamanaka Fu, asked his leader. Because on those two's incompetence, the new Hokage has his eyes on me en route. The risk of this unit being discovered is too great. For now, we shall remain hidden from everyone. I know Kakashi will increase the security around Tsunade's tent, and fighting the Hokage's Anbu is not in my plans right now. However, the time will come eventually. We'll increase the training regimen immediately. All of his root ninja immediately shouted their respects to Danzo, before vanishing. Once alone, Danzo headed to his house as he considered his next steps. He was humble to admit he underestimated the copy nin Kakashi. No one would bother to think of a traitor when Konoha was in ruins after Pain's attack. He'd need to exercise caution from now on. At the training ground . Even though it was already night time, Naruto didn't stop training. His Bunshins managed to finish the last one of the 4 jutsus required for the day, but he was unsatisfied with his taijutsu skills. Using the Bunshin's memory, he could better pinpoint his flaws and many opens while fighting, and while this time, he managed to fight 10 clones without the use of a kunai or ninjutsu, he still took hits that if it came from an enemy, he would have been killed. Summoning 10 more clones, their appearance looked pale, as an indication of Naruto's exhaustion after training hard all day. All his senseis tried teaching him patience, especially concerning his enthusiasm when training. They all knew that with his unending level of energy, he could train all day and only be winded in the end. But now Naruto had a goal in mind. He needed to be strong to protect those he cherished in his heart, and he wouldn't stop until he fell unconscious on the ground. The pale-looking clones charged Naruto simultaneously, but the real one managed to appear in the middle of the formation, breaking them as he landed a fierce punch on his first victim. One could say that after long periods of fighting, the body starts moving by instinct, hence why Naruto lifted his left arm to block an incoming kick heading his way from his left, before doing a minor back flip to avoid 2 Bunshins charging at him with punches. Once he landed on the ground, Naruto jumped once more and twisted his body before landing a fierce flying kick on the second victim. He turned quickly and elbowed the third right on the left jaw. While he was dealing with his clones and feeling immensely happy about his progress today, someone was watching from behind a tree in pure amazement. It wasn't because of his display of skills or his stamina to be training so much. Sakura was simply admiring Naruto's drive in life. He still wanted to improve, while not so long ago, he just beat an enemy the entire village of Konoha couldn't land a finger on. Also, Sakura could see the smile on the real Naruto's face as he trained, and she had to agree it was just peaceful to watch. Suddenly, though, as Naruto dealt with the last clone, Sakura remembered what she needed to tell the blonde, and her eyes met the ground instantly. Sasuke was their friend and member of Team 7, so why was he so adamant about hurting her and Naruto? The blonde noticed that she was there watching him and waved for her while yelling her name, waking her up from her stupor. Sakura-chan, what are you doing here? He, then, approached her calmly with his hands holding his head in total relaxation as he needed to unleash some of his never-ending source of energy. Sakura, for her part, wasn't sure how to begin. She knew he would be crushed to hear about their teammates' vile acts. Also, she knew he would be angry at Sasuke, but she knew that Naruto would see her case. He had to. Naruto, there is something I need to tell you, and it's about Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke. The topic started out serious, and the blonde had every sense to shut up as Sakura looked up to continue what she was about to say. Due to Tsunade-sama's slow recovery rate, the council decided to elect a new Hokage. They elected Kakashi-sensei as Rokudaime. Naruto was shocked as how fast they thought of replacing Tsunade like this. but he figured having his sensei Kakashi as Hokage wasn't such a bad thing, although some part in him was sad that another was nominated in his stead. Still, Naruto had a feeling Sakura wasn't finished, but he felt like adding his enthusiasm to Kakashi's promotion. "That's great, Sakura-chan. Kakashi-sensei is Hokage now. I just hope he stops being lazy or else the missions won't come." Naruto smiled as he placed his hands behind his head once more. However, it didn't take long for Naruto to realize that Sakura wasn't laughing with him. Suddenly, tears started falling from her eyes, surprising him greatly. "Naruto, it's about Sasuke as well." Sakura was beginning to hyperventilate, before Naruto ushered her to stop and take it easy, calming her a bit. This morning, 3 Kumo shinobi appeared requesting an urgent hearing with the Hokage. They wanted Sasuke to be declared a missing nin for what he's done against Kumogakur. The news sunk immediately and Naruto just stopped breathing. "But Sakura-chan, what did the Tem do that pissed Kumo off? Surely, it can't be that bad. He joined that organization Akatsuki and kidnapped the Raikage's brother, who was also a Jinchuriki of the Hachibi. The worst part was that Kakashi-sensei agreed to Kumo's demands. As of now, Sasuke-kun is a missing nin." The look on Naruto's eyes told Sakura just how she imagined he would react to the news: shock, disbelief, anger. At first she believed Naruto's anger to be directed at their sensei for granting Kumo's wish and turning Sasuke into a missing nin. She knew that Naruto shared her view concerning Sasuke's friendship and would no doubt demand an explanation from Kakashi. However, Sakura was wrong. Dead wrong. Naruto wasn't angry at Kakashi for what he did. Well, he was at first, but now that he knew what Sasuke did, he was livid. It was one thing to abandon Konoha in pursuit for his revenge, but to join the very organization that's after his life, after the Kyuubi. To this point, Naruto figured he understood Sasuke's feelings of revenge, seeing as he wanted the same thing when he was young, but to do what he did was a clear sign that Sasuke did not care about Naruto. Worse, he pretty much wanted Naruto dead. Sakura was beginning to get worried about her friend, since had been silent for a long time now, but she soon would have preferred he remained silent as he looked at her with a fierce glare that actually frightened her. "Sakura, if what you say is true, then the Sasuke I know is dead. If he's joined the very organization that wants me dead, then to me he's no longer the same Uchiha Sasuke I came to know." Sakura was stunned at Naruto's sudden change of heart as he walked past her, marching towards the village. Suddenly, tears fell from her eyes as Naruto's words echoed once more. Futen K's Angetsu, wind release, crescent moon wind technique. The wind bow left Naruto's hands, propelling towards a good set of trees, slicing them all and dissipating only after partially slicing a big-sized rock. The technique wasn't yet perfected. The rock wasn't cleaved in two, like it's supposed to. It's been 2 days since Sasuke was labeled a missing nin and Naruto couldn't shake his anger towards the person he once thought as a friend. Sure, Sasuke did try to kill him at the Valley of the End, but until now, Naruto's conception of a friend was enough to overcome the fact that the Tem pierced his chest 3 years ago. With him joining the same organization that was after him and others like him was appalling. He remembered the pain Akatsuki caused by almost killing Gaara. His blood began to boil once more, slightly enraged. Naruto began the hand signs for the technique he was perfecting. This time, the wind bow was much more precise and managed to slice the rock in two. A smile appeared as he managed to complete yet another technique. He wondered if his anger towards Sasuke was the trigger, but shrugged it off. Ever since Naruto studied Danza's book on vacuum manipulation, he learned that it was in fact a much advanced use of Futen ninjutsu, and by practicing it with his bunshins, he improved the regular wind techniques. The book listed a few vacuum techniques, however, every attempt failed. He would set aside these techniques for now and master the ones he is already able to perform. When Naruto was about to summon some clones to aid him in his taijutsu, though, he became alert. Seconds later, 3 strangers appeared in front of him. After close inspection, he saw the different headband and sighed, wondering what Kumo would want with him. He could see their angered faces and concluded that just like him, they were pissed at the Tem. "You were a part of Sasuke Uchiha's team, weren't you?" Naruto looked at the girl from the left and arched his right eyebrow at the lack of a proper introduction. Still, the fact that the woman was holding the katana strapped on her back, while questioning him, which was a dead indication that they wanted answers and wouldn't think twice in using strength to get them. Naruto couldn't get a read on the other woman, though he silently wondered if her breasts were even bigger than Bachan's. If that's even possible, answer us Konoha nin. This time, was the shinobi on the right side, who appeared to be sucking a lollipop. What a weird group. Why should I answer your question? And why Kumo would be interested which ninja worked with him? For what I know, you all have the information regarding his abilities. Naruto's feelings on Sasuke sure went down a lot of steps. But that didn't mean he would start spilling his guts to anyone who asked of him, especially those from another village. Naruto saw the big-breasted lady take a step forward, and waited for her answer. From her posture alone, Naruto could risk that she was the leader of the three-man unit. The other two were busy demanding answers from him, as if Naruto was obligated to appease to their demands. Any information on Uchiha Sasuke will be relevant in our efforts to capture him for what he did to our sensei. I apologize if my teammates here sounded demanding, but the information you possess is more detailed than the village's records, seeing as you fought alongside and against him in the past. Her tone was smooth and calm. In Naruto's mind, however, he just couldn't divulge said information to them. Without an express order from above, he knew that the minute he would open his mouth and deny the woman's polite request, though, the other two would attack him. The fact that their hands were already itching for their katanas were proof enough of their pretension, in case Naruto didn't cooperate. Nevertheless, Sasuke was still from Konoha, even if he was a missing nin, and Naruto wouldn't divulge a thing to these three. I am sorry Kunoichi-san, but I just can't divulge information about any of Konoha's ninjas. Missing nin or not, only after an express order from the Hokage. As soon as Naruto said those words, the dark-skinned woman charged at him with her katana already in position. While the other flanked her from the right, Naruto immediately had two kunais, one in each hand, while wondering why the big-breasted lady wasn't attacking him as well. Shrugging that thought for now, Naruto focused wind chakra through the kunais and parried the other woman's katana. The force of the kunai was too much for her to handle and she was pushed back a bit, allowing room for Naruto to land a nice kick on her stomach, just as her partner approached at his position. Naruto summoned two cage bunchins in front of him to stop the guy, but was surprised when he butchered them with little resistance. The katana was filled with chakra, forcing Naruto to focus more chakra in his kunai to block the assault. The kunais managed to hold the attack, which surprised the Kumo shinobi. The only way his lightning strike could be blocked was if his enemy was a wind user. His partner started making hand seals before he could ask Naruto his affinity. Raiden Dageisen, lightning release. Shock beam technique. The woman's partner knew that technique and charged Naruto at the same time as his partner finished the signs for her attack. The lightning beam charged towards Naruto, who saw the coordinated assault. It was time to test one of his new techniques against these two. Quickly going through a short series of hand seals, Naruto focused on the wind that surrounded him, accelerating it with a good portion of his chakra. Normally, wind techniques required control and finesse. However, as far as a defensive technique was concerned, focus was no issue. Fuden Shippu Shoheki, wind release, hurricane barrier technique. By the time the shock beam arrived, the team from Kumo was surprised to see the wind forming a hurricane around the Konoha ninja, protecting him. When the wind died, however, Naruto was nowhere to be seen. He appeared behind the woman and landed a fierce kick on her back, sending her flying towards her partner. Omoi managed to secure Karui, before both of them charged at Naruto with their swords drawn. They moved faster, but Naruto managed to parry both katanas with his kunai. They were gaining on him, though. Naruto spotted the last member of the team moving towards him from the corner of his eyes and focused on controlling the wind once more. Bending the wind to one's will required a huge amount of chakra and Naruto was feeling his large pool of energy rapidly depleting. Nevertheless, he managed to push away the three Kumo nins away from him, just as two smokes appeared behind him. Kumo shinobi, the authority given to you by the Hokage doesn't extend to actually attacking one of our own. Please cease the attack or we'll be forced to take action. The tone spoke by the Anbu left no interpretation and Karui snarled at them. Their option was obvious, though. If they couldn't even win against Naruto, what chance did they have against two more Anbu shinobi? They all vanished towards leaving the village, allowing Naruto to relax somewhat. He then turned to meet the two Anbu. Thanks for the assistance. You two weren't spying on me, right? How did you get here so fast? Naruto wondered if he would have to resort to more offensive techniques on the Kumo shinobi, until the Anbu came to the rescue. We were sent here because Hokage-sama wishes to speak with you, Uzumaki Naruto. There wasn't any need for us to follow you around, although I am starting to wonder if perhaps trouble seems to chase you around. Her tone was humorous. Naruto could tell. He wondered if the woman knew him, because the long purple hair was alien to him, unknown to him. Azuki Yugo were friends with Yuhi Kurenai and Mitarashi Anko, so she knew all too well about the kid's exploits. Naruto, though, accepted the answer and followed the two Anbu towards the tent where Kakashi would be waiting for him. At the Hokage's office . After sorting some documents, Kakashi decided to catch on some reading. In a few hours, he would have to talk to some Anbu personnel about an undercover mission, and then he would leave towards the cage summit. He took his eyes away from the book as three presences joined him in his office. Two belonged to the Anbu that he selected to pick an student of his, the other was said student. His bored-looking eye began to study Naruto for a bit. He couldn't exactly pinpoint what was so different about him, but he knew it was there somewhere. He could see a difference in posture than the usual goofing self. He listened to the report given by Yugo and narrowed his eyes for a bit at the part that Kumo attacked Naruto for information on Sasuke. He smiled, though, when Naruto managed to face a three-man unit on his own and not using the old strategy of overwhelming them with shadow clones. It seems trouble follows wherever you go, Naruto. Kakashi showed that usual smile of his behind his mask. Huh, stupid Kumo ninjas, attacked me without a reason. I just defended myself against them. Kakashi-sensei, sorry Hokage-sama. He scratched the back of his head, not even used to calling his lazy sensei, Hokage. Kakashi, for his part, smiled and waved him off. Don't worry Naruto, the Yondaime was my sensei and not once did I call him Hokage-sama. Now, I called you here for something I believe you'll be very happy about. Seeing as you were the one who saved the village, it's become apparent that you don't deserve your current rank, and while I can't grant you the position of Junin, it's within my power to grant you the position of Chunin of Konohagakure. As Kakashi spoke, he could see the smile on Naruto's face brightening the entire tent. Here it's your Chunin vest. Wear it with pride as you've been living your life, Naruto. The blonde grabbed the vest and placed it on top of his orange and black blouse. It was a little tight, but not uncomfortable. Now, Naruto, the blonde turned to the Hokage. Yamato told me that you are being detrimental in the village's reconstruction. Therefore, you'll be among the shinobi selected to aid him. You'll be reporting to Nara Shikaku in my absence. Naruto nodded, but suddenly showed a frown, which worried Kakashi. The Rokudaime Hokage already knew what would come. I heard from Sakura that you labeled Sasuke a missing nin. Kakashi nodded, observing the newly promoted Chunin. He was impressed and a little surprised. You don't seem angry with my decision. Why is that? Naruto said nothing, but his eyebrow indicated his displeasure at something. I don't. Sasuke's decision to join Akatsuki was the very reason you labeled him. The first time he betrayed me was by leaving the village 3 years ago. The second time he betrayed me was by piercing my chest with a Chidori. Now the third time came when he joined the very organization who wants to kill me and obtain the Kyuubi. He betrayed both myself and Konoha far too many times for me to stop thinking of him as my best friend. Kakashi nodded, though, feeling saddened that Sasuke's actions resulted in Team 7's extinction. I see, okay, then carry on what you're doing and report to Shikaku-san about the village reconstruction. Naruto saluted the man, before leaving the office. Kakashi, then, turned to the two Anbu next to him. Okay Neko, what do you know of Naruto's training so far? The boy's progress is outstanding, though with his kage bunshin. It was to be expected. On his fight against the Kumo ninjas, he managed to bend the wind to his will, similar to the Daidappa technique. I guess Danzas book aided him a lot in overcoming some of the obstacles faced by wind users. It won't take long for him to learn the book's techniques. Furthermore, his skills with the kunai are impressive. I've seen similar skills from Sarutobi Asuma. He managed to parry both katanas with it. I do have one question, Hokage-sama. What is it? Why not come forward and train him? Surely, his level would increase if one of the village's wind users was designated to teach him. Surely, one of our Anbu would be thrilled to pass on the knowledge. While it would be mostly beneficial for Naruto to receive advanced training from an Anbu, the fact that he is doing so well with the information Kakashi's indirectly supplied him was much better in the Hokage's opinion. Naruto's skills with wind jutsus will only increase in time. As a chunin, you must have the ability to search for information on your own. By leaving hints here and there, I am training his mind to figure things on its own, improving his capabilities as a shinobi. I may be Hokage now, but I am still his sensei. Even more so, seeing as Jiraiya-sama is no longer among us. Now, I want you to fetch a new weapon for me. It will be his to use. Seeing how he adapted to using small knives in combat. It's from the same store that Asuma had his own trench knives, but I altered the design a bit to fit Naruto's offensive capabilities. Yugo accepted the answer and bowed in respect. It will be done, Hokage-sama. Anything else you require? Yes, tell Shizune to meet me at the designated spot. He'll be waiting there with the Anbu teams. Dismissed you two. With Naruto . After leaving the Hokage's tent, Naruto figured that he would stop for some lunch. The training this morning followed by his fight against the Kumo shinobi did open up his appetite. He smiled upon knowing that Ichiraku Ramen was amongst the only restaurants that weren't damaged beyond repair. They only needed 2 new stoves which were easy to purchase. Besides that, Naruto used his cage buncheons and built their store just as it was before. Half an hour later, he was rubbing his stomach happily, while muttering some praises to the person who invented the meal of the gods. He then looked at the medical tent nearby, more precisely the person tending to a Hyuga Junin inside. His heart immediately skipped a bit, when he saw Hyuga Hinata smiling at the man with the injured arm. After the fight with Pain, his memory became a blur. He couldn't figure out what happened before going crazy and using the Fox Chakra. However, after some mind searching, he remembered that Hinata managed to save his life. To this day, he always wondered about her behavior, how she would faint every time he was near her or when he tried to talk to her. She couldn't speak to him. Without stuttering, it turned out that Naruto was clueless to everything involving Hinata's affections for him, so far. I love you, Naruto-kun. Having little to no love in his life, Naruto didn't know what to think of the fact that someone loved him. The simple definition of the word eluded him. He didn't know what it was or how to feel love for someone. He supposed that both the Sandaime and Jiraiya were considered his family as grandfather figures, and he even met his father while battling against Pain, but the concept of love Hinata mentioned was different, completely different. He wanted to ask her about it, though, gathering some courage, he went inside the medical tent. He tried opening his mouth to talk to her, but Naruto realized he didn't know what to say. The time he was pestering Sakura for a date was easy, because he never expected her to actually say yes. Strangely enough, the concept of asking Hinata out frightened him for some unknown reason. Uzumaki Naruto, what can we do for you? One of the nurses saw him and approached his position. The Hyuga, for her part, turned to meet her longtime crush with a smile on her face. Her face became red all of a sudden. Naruto was at a loss of words right away. That smile on her face upon seeing him told him a lot about her feelings. He may not know what he felt right now, he just wanted to see more of that. Ah, well, I wanted to talk to you, Hinata, if you don't mind. Great, now he was the one stuttering. The woman, though, nodded her head and followed Naruto outside the tent so that they could talk. She wanted to come forward one more time after the fight. But fixing Konoha and taking care of the wounded took precedence. A lot of shinobi had to be taken care of and the medical program just wasn't able to handle on their own. It didn't mean that she didn't think about her proclamation to Naruto. On the contrary, she wondered if he would respond to her love. Eventually, she wondered if Naruto felt the same way as she felt for him. She didn't want to pressure him into anything, though from her report of the fight, she remembered Sakura saying that after she was attacked by Pain, Naruto just lost it. Anyo, you wanted to talk to me, Naruto-kun. Why yes, Hinata, I do. You see, I don't remember much about the fight against Pain. Everything happened so fast that I didn't have time to grasp everything, but I do remember you stepping up to Pain in my defense, and I wanted to say thank you. The girl smiled once more and nodded. I am glad that I could help you, Naruto-kun. I just couldn't let you die. Hinata wanted to tell him on more time that she loved him, but she just couldn't. Not that she didn't want to, on the contrary, but her shyness was too big of an obstacle to overcome. Naruto didn't need to hear it one more time, though. Hinata's smile directed at him already showed him enough. It didn't say that he fully understood his feelings for her. However, It did clear out the path for him to say what he intended to. Upon entering the medical tent, he just braced himself and said it. "Hinata, I also remembered another thing you said to me that day. I don't know much about love, but would you be willing to, I don't know, train with me sometime?" Naruto was in a nervous breakdown, bearing on even Hinata's behavior. But instead of beating him up or openly dismissing him, the girl in front of him kept smiling and nodded in acceptance. Hinata's mind, for her part, was going 1,000 miles a minute trying to grasp the situation, wondering if this was some sort of dream. To this day, most of the dreams she had involved Naruto asking her out. She wasn't truly expecting him to get on his knees and propose to her. She knew that her love for him wouldn't be reciprocated out of the blue. By asking her out, he was open to knowing her better. "I'd like that, Naruto-kun." The smile on his face was enticing. Unknown to both of them, Sakura was suddenly bombarded with jealousy. She overheard the conversation as soon as she entered the medical tent in order to gather the reports. One side of her was happy for Hinata, other side, though, was furious that Naruto would stop chasing her around. Unknown location Senju Tsunade was still heavily sedated, but this time, she wasn't inside her tent. Being an former Anbu, Kakashi knew how to run a Black Ops assignment. This was one of them as he appeared behind Tsunade's bed along with a group of Anbu under his command. Shizune appeared by her master's side, in her full Junin attire. She waited for Kakashi to brief her through their secret mission. Looking at the team selected by the Hokage, Shizune wondered how Kakashi even knew about them so much. He was just now nominated as Hokage. It went without saying that Kakashi was the best choice for Hokage. "Shizune, I am handing the welfare of this mission to Tori here. As you must know, he's the best on the job and will take Tsunade-sama to Sunagaku in no time. His Byakugan will serve to alert him of possible enemies. The Kazekage has already dispatched a team to meet you and will guide you to the village. It will take a couple of hours before Danzas Root Anbu find out, but by that time, you will be a few miles from the border and their Anbu won't simply engage ninjas from Suna. Tori, Shikaku will be expecting constant reports of the mission." "Yes, Hokage-sama. Team, begin the sealing ritual. Be careful not to tamper with Godime-sama's chakra system." Instantly 4 Anbu stood by the 4 sides of Tsunade's bed, before both her and her bed was gone. Afterwards, the entire room was empty except for the Hokage, who looked at the direction the Anbu and Shizune went. Before merging with the shadows once more, he trusted his Anbu more than anything. They were after all his family. Next day The next day, Kakashi and his bodyguards stood in front of Konoha's west gate. Both his bodyguards wore the standard Junin attire of Konoha. The tallest of the two had a gigantic scar that began on his forehead and reached his chin. His hair was tied like the Nara clan and he had a goatee. All the time he showed a distant look towards the new Hokage, who appeared ignorant to the Mon's hatred over having to once more receive orders from him. His partner in crime, though, appeared more inconspicuous. Though he shared his partner's hatred at the situation, his face was by far more scarred than his partner and he had an eye patch on the left eye, from being scorched a couple years ago. Aside from that, nothing is noticeable. While none of them could say that Kakashi was a bad shinobi while on their time as an Anbu. It was something else that got on their nerves just by looking at the man. It was arrogance or, as some people would say, petulance. When Kakashi was promoted to Anbu captain, he was barely older than the average age of graduation and yet he was ordering around shinobi with at least twice as much age and experience than him. It was irritating to take orders from a child and yet despite the fact that before being Hokage, Kakashi was one of Konoha's elite Junin, in their mind, he is the same petulant child who dared boss them around. There were others to see the Hokage off, those being the regular Junin and 2 members of Kakashi's old genin team. Naruto and Sakura. It came to a shocking surprise when the recently promoted Chunin appeared with a completely different wardrobe. After training with Hinata the other day, Naruto complained that his old clothes were rather uncomfortable. The girl offered to accompany him to a shinobi store. He now wore black Anbu pants, a black t-shirt with some orange stripes on the sleeves, a pair of black fingerless gloves and dark orange arm guards. Now, the Chunin vest was way more comfortable than before, not to mention that he now had more freedom in his movements. After the Hokage was gone, Naruto began to leave towards an appointment he had when Sakura noticed it and decided to ask him something. "Hey Naruto, As head of the medical unit in Shizun's absence, I am supposed to run some errands around the medical tents. Want to come with me? We can get something to eat afterward. The proposition was tempting in Naruto's book. It wasn't often that Sakura asked him out. Also, the fact that she was offering food afterwards was a plus in his book. However, he had other plans right now. Contrary to most, only one priority separated Naruto from food, and that was more training with Hinata. But still, it was training. He invited her for a spar sometime, and the time is today. Sorry, Sakura-chan, but I already have plans to meet Hinata-chan at the training grounds. Maybe some other time. Alright. Naruto began to run towards the training grounds without even waiting for a response from the pink-haired Chunin and medic. At the training ground Hyuga Hinata still believed this to be a dream of some sort, a genjutsu that someone casted in order to make her live the best day of her life, so far. The prospect of spending time alone with Naruto was her wish ever since she started the academy, and it only increased in time. Her Byakugan was active, while she was stretching and doing some light routine in preparation for her spar with Naruto. A sudden smile appeared once her dujutsu showed him approaching her position. She could see his smile from a great distance, and it only served to brighten her day even more. The thought that today would be as much fun for him as it's been for her. As soon as Naruto landed in front of her, he screamed her name. Hello, Hinata-chan. Sorry I was late, but I was just seeing Kakashi-sensei off to that cage meeting thing and, never mind, are you ready? The Hyuga girl smiled, before falling into the original Hyuga-like stance. Within seconds, Naruto charged with a straight punch to her gut. But Hinata, with a grace as her clan was famous for, simply redirected it, before beginning her sequence of open palms. Naruto saw it, though, and evaded the attacks quickly enough. He flipped his body backwards, so as to maintain some level of distance from Hinata's Juken. He charged once more with a great sequence of punches and kicks, all the while focusing his eyes on Hinata's hands. He remembered his fight against her and how much damage caused by the Hyuga's taijutsu. Still, the fact that he could go toe-to-toe with their speed must mean he has improved on his taijutsu. He was surprised when an open palm escaped his defense, but he managed to hold Hinata's gentle fist before it reached his left shoulder. Right afterwards, he created some distance from Hinata in order to better access the situation better. However, Hinata only smiled before extending her left hand and focusing on the Hyuga's first and only long-range attack. The blonde was shocked as hell upon seeing the energy leaving Hinata's hand, heading straight for his stomach. Quickly doing hand seals, he lifted a hurricane barrier, which almost wasn't enough to stop the empty air palm technique of the Hyugas. Wow, Hinata, that attack was so cool. I've never seen Neji doing it. You're really strong. The fact that Naruto of all people was saying those words to her, it was invigorating. Hinata charged Naruto this time, surprising Naruto since usually she would usually wait for him to strike first, unknown to him. Though, Hinata felt something within her. As the fight progressed, she usually was against fighting much, preferring to stay from mid to long range, assisting her team, but fighting with Naruto, it was so much fun, she didn't want it to end. Naruto, this time, saw the increase in speed and was surprised when Hinata landed 3 open palms on his chest. However, when she was about to apologize and tend to him, Naruto was gone in a puff of smoke. I don't expect you to go easy on me, Hinata-chan. I know I am not quick like Neji, but... Naruto stopped talking, seeing that Hinata was on his face once more time, hoping to deliver a great load of open palms with a smile on her face. This time, however, she could see how much chakra Naruto was focusing on his legs and arms, up to the point that he managed to land a fierce punch on Hinata's stomach. Naruto was by her side on the floor looking scared. However, he was shocked when Hinata used the opportunity and delivered a nice Juken strike on his right arm, surprising the blonde Chunin. I also don't expect you to go easy, Naruto-kun. With this, Naruto smiled and took a sit by her side, all the while still apologizing to Hinata for the punch as she opened his closed tenketsus. The two were smiling at each other, when an Anbu appeared before Naruto, with a request from Shikaku. Naruto grumbled in annoyance at being called, but he got up nonetheless. Hinata, for her part, smiled at his antics. Uzumaki Naruto, your presence is requested. Okay, I am going already. The Anbu grumbled a bit at the lack of respect, but vanished, leaving Naruto and Hinata alone. Hinata-chan, I enjoyed every minute of it. I hope we can do it again. Hinata was surprised, but nodded once more. I'd love to Naruto-kun. Now I believe Shikaku-san needs you. Naruto smiled at her and left the vicinity towards the Hokage's tent, leaving Hinata alone as she started walking towards the tent where her family was staying. Neither of the two noticed a third presence whom got in time to see Naruto and Hinata on the ground talking with each other and laughing. Sakura just didn't like what she was seeing. With Kakashi . Walking peacefully towards his path to Iron Country. Kakashi eyed his bodyguards, who were right behind him. He knew why neither of them had any liking for him. Considering how badly he abused of his authority 10 years ago as their captain, since then, whenever he was at the Anbu headquarters, these two would always give him the eye. He chose those two to guard him, not only because they were part of the elite, but also in order to somehow make it up for his past transgressions. He supposed it was a bad idea. In the end, both of them were proud shinobi, and if a grudge is sustained for so long, it's not an easy feat to erase it. A sudden feeling startled the three shinobi as they lifted their heads to see a bunch of mask-wearing individuals attacking them. It was clear, though, that their target was the Hokage. The big bodyguard snorted at the attempt and made a single-hand seal. Before a massive hurricane formed around them, the wind defense protected them from the assault of shuriken and other projectiles. A great load of them, while the first one held the enemies in place, the smaller one was concentrated, making a long series of hand seals. Kakashi knew these two were among the best there was in the Anbu forces, and their coordinated efforts in wind techniques was which first prompted Kakashi to ask them to teach Naruto. However, he knew that such a request would easily be denied vehemently by both of them. Fuden Shinku Renpa, wind release, vacuum successive waves technique. With Kakashi's Sharingan, he could count the number of cuts produced by the elite Junin, and he could see that little by little all of the attackers were falling on the ground, dead. Such was the efficiency displayed by these two, and Anbu's job was to serve and protect the Hokage. Therefore, their strategy was to kill first and probably ask questions later, provided that one actually lived. Kakashi wanted at least to figure out why a random group of assassins would attack a cage. However, with the two by his side, you couldn't expect that any enemy would survive, at least not with their limbs intact. It would be too much to ask for at least one of them alive. Kakashi asked, with a sigh as he looked at the dead group. What can I say? Your safety is our top priority. Hokage-sama, the tone spoke was enough not to warrant any more questions regarding the situation. Forget it, let's proceed. Just call in another team and have them clean up the area. With that out of the way, Kakashi and his bodyguards started walking once more towards Iron Country. Back in Konoha. Back in Konoha, Naruto and another Chunin was standing side by side as they faced the worst-looking area of Konoha. Their mission was simple: clear the area for the reconstruction. In a few months, this will be a shinobi-only building, but right now, there were debris, rock and wood pretty much everywhere. We have a lot of work here, More things to explode. This guy was nuts. Plain and simple. His name was Kazuki, and a demolition expert. He was taller than Naruto, light-tanned looking skin and black hair. His skills relied heavily on fuinjutsu and traps. Aside from that, he was an okay guy. Aside for the fact that he gets kicks over exploding things, Naruto would be using Rasengan and Cage Bunshin for the job. After hearing steps behind them, they turned to see Yamato, the one in charge of both cleaning and reconstructing the village. Because of you two, Konoha's reconstruction is already far advanced. This area right here is the most troubled. I managed to separate two different parts for each of you. I just hope that none of you will destroy the barrier. Otherwise one of you will get seriously injured in there. Now, Kazuki will take the part on the right and Naruto the left. I am giving each 2 hours to clean up this area. Afterward, I will flat this area for construction of the facility. Move out. Naruto immediately summoned up to 50 Cage Bunshins and went along them to the site. As each prepared their Rasengans, Kazuki, for his time, opened up a fan of explosive notes and threw them at the site. Everyone thought that some enemy was attacking Konoha, as the sound of the destruction pretty much started a little earthquake. Yamato was having a bit of trouble keeping up the wood barrier. He already knew that putting these two together was downright chaotic, but Shukaku was the one behind the big table in Kakashi's stead. He couldn't deny, though, that the pace was unbelievable. It didn't take more than an hour, before only a few debris and wood remained, allowing Yamato to swipe the place with a simple use of Doden ninjutsu. Afterward, the two kamikazes appeared in front of Yamato, both of them with dirt all over their clothes from the number of explosions. Great work you two. Kazuki, you're dismissed. Naruto, please follow me. Both did as ordered and Kazuki left, but not before saying his farewell to Naruto and Captain Yamato. So what is it that you need me, Yamato Taiko? The blonde asked, as he followed the ex-Anbu towards the only place in Konoha where a few shops were already built. Yamato got inside one and Naruto followed. Once inside, the man, whom Naruto assumed was the vendor, greeted the pair and asked how he could help. Yamato simply gave the man a small piece of paper. Naruto saw a smile as the vendor began his search inside the warehouse. A couple minutes later and after a lot of noise, the vendor appeared and turned towards Naruto. Hokage-sama wanted to give you something, an ace in battle if you could call it that. Every shinobi must acquire a set of skills in order to be better prepared: ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, fuinjutsu, kenjutsu, and the list goes on. From what we managed to observe from your fighting skills, you possess great ability with a kunai. Therefore, it was the Hokage's wish to give you a weapon that would fit perfectly with your skills. Yamato could see the growing smile on Naruto's face and actually wished he had a camera when the boy saw his weapon. This is my first masterpiece since I reopened the store. Here it is. The vendor showed two identical daggers that looked exactly like the one Asuma-sensei used. However, he could see a slight difference regarding the handle and the blade's length. Naruto silently grabbed them and positioned them like he would do with a kunai, and he was marveled at the sense of balance. The kunais were handy, but without a proper handle, it was hard to maintain it in battle. Also, although its size, Naruto was surprised that it didn't weigh much more than the regular kunai, which spoke highly for the metal used in it. Like Asuma's, these daggers were carved with chakra-conductive metal. That being said, the more wind chakra you flow through them, sharper and more resilient it will become, Yamato said, earning a smile from Naruto as an image from his sensei smiling appeared in his mind. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, I won't let you down. Also Naruto, Yamato said, calling his attention. Considering that cleaning Konoha is almost over, I was wondering if you wanted a new sparring partner. It would be very beneficial to increase your skills. We can even train with your new weapon. I am no kenjutsu expert, but my skills with the ninjutsu are well enough for us to practice. What you say? The blonde turned to think for a while. He had Hinata for training, but it wouldn't hurt adding a new sparring partner to the mix. Plus, he was still confused about the entire Hinata ordeal. She was strong and an excellent sparring partner, but was something about that smile of hers that always seemed to send him off track of something. He didn't know why this was happening. I'd say bring it, Yamato Taiko. Could we use ninjutsu as well? Not lethal ones or anything, I just wanted to fully test the results of my training. Alright, I guess it's okay, considering you don't go overboard on me like you used to with our enemies. But I ask that you focus more on close combat against me. Naruto, practicing your ninjutsu is never wrong, but overdependency on techniques can get you killed. It's best to use them wisely, otherwise, you'll just be wasting chakra, and that is never a good thing. We could gather at least 2 times a week for some exercises at the training ground. Have some practice with your new weapon for a bit. After that, look for me. After that, Yamato and Naruto each parted ways, seeing as the sun was already on his way down. At Sunagaku . In what was considered the fastest trip ever, Shizune and the Anbu team arrived at Sunagaku, carrying the perhaps most important scroll of Konoha. Slowly wiping the sweat from her forehead, she saw as the team leader talked with a Junin from Suna about their mission. Looking around, she was amazed that none of the Anbu seemed tired or even panting from their trip that took less than 2 days tops. She wondered if perhaps her skills had dwindled because of focusing her efforts in healing patients and helping Tsunade with her duties as Hokage. Eventually, the group started following the Junin from Sunagaku throughout the city. Once inside the hospital, the team unrolled the scroll on the ground. Before the unsealing ritual soon took place, contrary to most. This part was by far the hardest, for once, because the travel here took a good portion of the Anbu's chakra, even though they weren't as winded as Shizune. Another reason was that, because of the low chakra, keeping a steady flow for the ritual was even harder. In the end, though, the ritual was successful and the Godime Hokage was still unconscious on her bed. now linked to an IV tube and a few proper medical equipment to monitor her health. Shizuko, the head medic of the hospital, was by Tsunade's side while Shizune explained her situation so far. Okay, Shizune-san, I've got everything ready for Tsunade-sama to recuperate. Do not worry, she'll be in good care here with us. The medic from Konoha nodded in appreciation, but turned her head to the right to see a wounded man, all covered by white hair. After seeing what caught Shizune's attention, Shizuko began explaining Tsunade's roommate's situation. A group of Junin rescued him close to the border between Imaginative and Fire Country. He had his back pierced multiple times by an unknown metal and was suffering from severe chakra exhaustion and malnutrition. We managed to sustain him, but afterward, he fell into a deep coma. He's no doubt a shinobi, seeing as his chakra pathways are very developed. However, we don't know his identity yet. We are expecting him to wake up during this week. Shizune listened to the mon's prognostic with slight suspicion, but shrugged it off. Her attention was on Tsunade, not some random old man. I appreciate it, Shizuko-san. I'll leave Tsunade-sama in your care, Shizune spoke. Before she left the hospital towards the Anbu team that was waiting outside the village. She wished she could stay and take care of her master, but Konoha needed her more. However, if she stayed a few more seconds inside the room, she'd hear her master's roommate whisper his first words with plain difficulty, being his first words in a long time. Tsunade. Feeling his throat extremely dry, Jiraiya opened his eyes once more. The last memory he had was being killed by his former student Nagato and leader of Akatsuki in Imaginative. Instead, his eyes registered a different location than he assumed heaven to be. The walls were white and his ears were able to register the annoying sound of medical equipment, monitoring his heartbeats and blood pressure. I am not dead. Why? Jiraiya was startled upon hearing two different set of voices inside his room. One, shockingly enough, he recognized as Shizune, Tsunade Haime's assistant. The other, whom Jiraiya didn't know, was talking about his condition, apparently. A group of Arjunin rescued him close to the border between Rain and Fire Country. He had his back pierced multiple times by an unknown metal structure and was suffering from severe chakra exhaustion and malnutrition. We managed to sustain him, but afterward, he fell into a coma. We don't know if he's civilian. His chakra pathways are very developed. However, we don't know if he's a ninja. Since we don't know anything about him, we are expecting to see him awake sometime this week, said the stranger to Shizune, none of them aware that Jiraiya was awake and hearing everything. So, that's what happened. I wasn't dead. I now remember that I was sinking quite fast, but afterwards, I passed out. But, it doesn't make sense. The toads would have known that I wasn't dead. They would come to help me if I was just unconscious. Jiraiya was perplexed as hell, but everything fell on deaf ears as soon as heard Shizune speak. I appreciate it, Shizuko-san. I'll leave Tsunade-sama in your care. The man would have jumped from his bed and shouted his teammate's name, if it wasn't for the fact that his body was aching all over, his throat was dry and his stomach hurt from extreme malnutrition. What happened to her? Once both the doctor and Shizune left the room, Jiraiya focused his attention on his teammate and saw how deadly pale she was. The monitor by her side indicated a minimal but steady heartbeat, meaning she was still alive. The usual illusion that made Tsunade look 20 years younger was gone. Jiraiya would have jumped to her side if he wasn't as equally depleted. Who could have done this to her? Was Konoha attacked? No, Nagato, you didn't go after Naruto, did you? Jiraiya witnessed firsthand the power of the Rinnegan and he knew that Nagato was unstoppable. Even he, after using Senjutsu, failed. He knew a few in Konoha that could match up his skills, but he was certain that none of them were a match for Pain. However, the fact that Shizune was alive brought a little more hope to the pervert Sannin. But what happened to Naruto? Was he captured by Akatsuki? I have to know, but I can't do anything right now. I can't seem to move at all. He tried with all his might to reach a remote button that would call the nurses. However, when he looked at his left arm, he was shocked at first, but then remembered that Nagato ripped it off. Looking at his right arm, he managed to move it, albeit a bit slowly, towards the remote controls that would call anyone to his assistance. This task alone proved harder than mastering the Rasengan. At the state he was in, it took 20 minutes for Jiraiya to reach the button. As he pressed the button repeatedly, his mind screamed for anyone to answer his call for help. Luckily, two nurses came barging inside the room, quickly approaching Jiraiya's bedside. One of the nurses stayed to check his pulse while the other left to call the doctor. It's going to be all right, sir. The doctor is already on his way here to check on you. Is there anything I can do for you? Despite his dry throat, Jiraiya was able to complete the word. Ader the nurse nodded and ran outside to grab some for Jiraiya. The Sannin felt the nice liquid fill his throat once more. Slowly, but surely, his voice was coming back as he now paid attention to his surroundings. He looked at the window and realized the sandstorm bombarding the village outside. He was in Sunagaku, it seemed. He supposed it was only fitting that the Hokage, whoever he was, would send Tsunade to be treated here if, for some unknown reason, she couldn't be treated in Konoha, unless the leader was Danzo, but if that was the case, then Tsunade would be dead or worse. Sir, the doctor has arrived. The nurse's sweet voice alerted the white-bearded man as he looked at the attending physician. As soon as the physician arrived, Jiraiya noticed that it was the same man who was talking with Shizune a few minutes ago. He appeared to be smiling, which Jiraiya assumed was because his patient has woken up. Hello, my name is Shizuko, I am the head physician here. When you were brought here, you were quite a mess, glad to see you recovered. Now, this is just formality, so bear with me for a second. I'll fill in your personal data, so that we can monitor your health better. Now, first of all, your name please. Of course, it was standard procedure once the patient woke up from a coma, but Jiraiya felt a little disappointed that the man had to ask his name. He was clueless regarding the fact that he looked more like a white bear than one of the Sannin. Despite that, he indulged the Monswell and answered the question. The name is Jiraiya from Konohagaku. The physician stopped dead in his tracks at the name. He knew only one Jiraiya in his life, as one of the Sannin of Konohagaku. From what he heard, the man was killed by the exact man who attacked the hidden village in the leaves a couple weeks ago. It was impossible that this man could be the one Jiraiya. After asking for permission, the physician lifted the huge bundle of white hair from the patient's face. Seeing the prominent red lines below the eyes appeared, immediately, he turned to the nurse next to Jiraiya. Go to the Kazekage-sama's office immediately, tell them Jiraiya of the Sannin is alive. The Sannin only watched as the pretty nurse, with fiery red hair and a smoking body, he might add, ran outside the room. He figured that in a few minutes, Gaara would come and start asking some questions. He figured that it would be wise not to create a commotion over the situation. The less everyone knew the better for now. He still had some questions left unanswered and probably Gaara would be able to supply them for him. Meanwhile, Shizuko ran some tests to see his health, while the only nurse in the room worked on cutting the excessive hair and beard. In no time, the pervert was back to what he once was, except for the fact that he no longer had both arms. The fact brought painful memories as he looked at the direction of his missing arm. It took a single taijutsu strike from Nagato to rip it off like it was nothing. Jiraiya couldn't help but wonder if pain went to Konoha after Naruto. If that happened, then he feared the worst. As good as Naruto became over the years, he was no match for Nagato. He was woken up from his wonderings. However, when a man with the usual Suna Junin vest and a turban on his head walked inside, Jiraiya immediately remembered that Gaara was the one who should be here, since he was the Godime Kazekage. Before he could start with the questions, though, Baki started explaining the reason behind him being here and not Gaara. Greetings Jiraiya-sama, my name is Baki, I am replacing Gaara-sama at the moment. I bet that Konoha will be thrilled to know that you're alive. I appreciate it that your shinobi managed to rescue me and brought me to be healed. Otherwise I might not be so lucky. Now, Baki, I trust that you can inform whatever happened since I was reported missing, because after seeing my teammate over there, I was worried that Akatsuki went to Konoha to try and kidnap Naruto. The sudden somber tone that filled the room sent Jiraiya on edge, probably because of the fact that with Akatsuki, anything was possible and an experienced shinobi mind like his always accounts for the most tragic situations possible. I'll tell you everything Jiraiya-sama, quite a lot has happened after your fight against the leader of Akatsuki. Baki, then, proceeded to relay all the information Suna had on the events that surfaced, while Jiraiya heard every word with dread of what's to come. In Konoha . Unknown to the fact that his sensei was somehow alive and was being treated in Sunagaku. Naruto was seen practicing, until exhaustion overcame him, the movements with his new weapon, the trench knives. His control of wind chakra wasn't on Asuma's level yet, hence why he was suffering to focus wind chakra through his weapons and practice the movements at the same time. Fighting with the knives suited him. his taijutsu wasn't all that good and enemies constantly used him as a punching bag. Also, he was doing all of this standing on top of a river, which further increased the level of difficulty. Even so, he was committed into improving his skills, no matter what the cost. Close to the river border was Yamato with a smile on his face as he watched. Even supervised Naruto's practice, he wouldn't dare voicing out loud that pain attacking Konoha was beneficial to Naruto. The fact remained that, although no one perished, which only happened thanks to Naruto, the village suffered an enormous blow. Nevertheless, after the fight, Naruto's drive, somehow, allowed him to increase his skills exponentially. This exercise was considered a Junin level 1, and to see Naruto going through the motions, while at the same time focusing continuous amounts of wind chakra through the trench knives was impressive. He could practically feel Naruto's concentration as drops of sweat fell free on the ground. Yamato watched transfixed when Naruto started focusing more chakra through his trench knives. The elemental weapon suddenly expanding to the size of a katana. The former Anbu didn't do anything for the time being, but he knew that the blonde was, subconsciously or not, using some of the fox chakra. By now, the weapon was the same size as Naruto himself, and his eyes already transformed from the natural blue to menacing red eyes. Going through a rapid sequence of hand seals, Yamato focused on his wood manipulation and quickly binded Naruto. Oi Yamato Taiko, I wasn't even using one tail of the fox, why did you stop me? Naruto shouted from a distance, earning a frown from the ex-Anbu. Be that as it may, Naruto, you still don't know how to control it fully. I know for a fact that you can go up to 2 tails without losing yourself, but if I didn't stop you, would you be able to? The lack of answer and subsequent down-looking sufficed as an answer. Yamato, though, only smiled. Naruto, you don't need its chakra to become strong, consider it as a last resort. Much like you use natural energy for, remember that none of the Akatsuki had a Biju and they still became S-rank nins. Now, I trust that you won't go overboard. I have a meeting right now with the Junin Council. Your skills with the trench knives have improved, so try focusing on your ninjutsu for now. The art of vacuum manipulation involves complete mastery of wind manipulation. The compliment was enough to lift Naruto's spirit as he watched Yamato leave in a shunshin. Now that he was alone, Naruto took a moment to rest his chakra pathways, while he pondered on the theory behind wind manipulation. Using the trench knives was perhaps the best way to improve. But Naruto needed to reach a state where he didn't need a weapon to sharpen the wind as he desired. Only then would he be able to use vacuum manipulation. The more concentrated the wind was, the closer to his goal Naruto was. He had 2 techniques to use, regarding the art, and despite the fact that he was able to perform them to some extent, none of them were performed correctly. For one, he could see the technique's trajectory perfectly, and 2, it didn't have the speed nor the slicing capability necessary, according to the book. It was one of the reasons that he trained with the trench knives every chance he had. He needed to sharpen the wind chakra at the exact amount, only without the aid of the weapon. Getting up once more, deciding that with enough practice he could reach the level required, Naruto went through the hand seals needed to mold chakra for the first technique, before gathering chakra inside his lungs at the same time as he inspired some air. Fuden Shinku Saperi, wind release, vacuum thrust technique. The blonde exhaled a potent thrust of wind that traveled fast towards a considerable sized rock about 30 meters away from him. By compressing the air molecules, as required for him to master the technique, the wind thrust needed to cover the distance and shatter the rock with the same force that left Naruto's mouth. However, and much to his frustration, the technique vanished after 10 meters, although he knew that it wasn't the amount of chakra, but rather how much he could compress the wind. Naruto just couldn't apply the theory to practice, it was getting on his nerves. Damn it, how the hell did Danzo manage? I don't want to use clones for everything, but I guess it can't be helped. Without them, it would take too damn long. Within seconds, about 30 blondes performed the technique at the same time in hopes that they would gather as much information as possible about mastering the art. Deciding that was more prudent to practice his already mastered techniques, the original Naruto left his clones to practice the art, while he went to a different sector of the training ground. Who knew? Maybe the answer he was looking for was not in perfecting one technique, but all of them, instead. Naruto went through every technique he knew. He leveled the field with the Great Breakthrough technique. He sliced some trees with the Wind Sword technique and the Crescent Moon Wind technique. Throughout the repetitive usage of wind techniques, Naruto realized two very interesting things. One was that with enough practice, he managed to feel the exact amount of chakra needed to perform the technique. Second was the fact that he was right. Only through practice, he could achieve Danzas level, the art of vacuum manipulation. He considered it a relief. He didn't want to read more books. They were boring as hell. Ever since the academy, Naruto was more of a trial and error kind of learner. Never an academic, he saw all of his clones doing the vacuum thrust technique and figured that he would attempt a very difficult technique he learned. Quickly focusing on the dragon seal, Naruto began manipulating the wind around him, in an attempt to further sharpen the air around him. This peculiar technique couldn't actually be described as difficult to perform. Naruto only had to focus on creating multiple wind swords around him at the same time, before sending them towards the designated targets. When he first attempted this technique, it took too damn long and, thus, in a battlefield, he wouldn't be able to finish if he was alone. Therefore, as he practiced his skills repeatedly, he managed to shorten the time considerably. Futen Arashi no Tsurugi, Wind Release, Storm of Blades technique. Immediately, the swords obeyed his command and charged the imaginary opponent, slicing him into pieces in less than a second, smiling at how his training progressed. Naruto figured it was time to practice his senjutsu now, while his clones took care of the ninjutsu portion. Hopefully, Naruto would be able to try a new element with his method of training. Maybe, Yamato or even Hinata could help him in figuring out the best element for him to use. Slowly seating on the ground, Naruto immediately went into meditating position and closed his eyes for a minute. When he opened his eyes, instead of his usual sapphire blue eyes, now appeared like a toad's. Immediately, Naruto began practicing the katas of the toad style of fighting. The blonde wondered if, even without the nature chakra, said style would be as effective. Sure, he wouldn't be able to use for the intended purpose, but perhaps he could practice as well. Naruto kept training the katas until he started sweating profusely. By now, the time for senjutsu ran short and his eyes went back to his usual blue eyes before he looked at the sun. He was supposed to meet Hinata in a couple hours. Quickly dispelling the clones, Naruto had to stop moving as his head was spinning like a bloody tornado. Stupid, I can't dispel them all at once. He stumbled as the sudden rush of memory invaded his brain. It was even difficult to stand for a while. Afterwards, he started walking towards the location where his tent was located. As he pondered on the second element, he heard people talking once that a Junin needs to know and perhaps master at least two elements. Wind was already on its way. Of course, he wouldn't stop practicing. He wanted to achieve vacuum manipulation, but that shouldn't stop him from learning something else. Now, besides wind, there were 4 other elements for him to choose from: fire, lightning, water and earth. All 4 of them were cool in his book, except that fire was Sasuke's deal, so he didn't want it. Lightning was as well, so it only left water and earth to choose. His mind went through the times when he faced both techniques and smiled at the possibility of practicing either one of the elements. The fact that he was giddy in anticipation only further proved his desire to improve his skills. Naruto was running towards his tent when he saw a lot of familiar faces talking about something. Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, Hinata, Ino, Sakura, Neji, Tenten and Lee had serious expressions on their faces. Naruto didn't know what could be so important that all of them were behaving this way. And the fact that Shikamaru was the one who ushered Naruto to join them was even stranger, considering that he rarely ever took the initiative for things. So, why all of you are gathered like this and why the down faces? Did something happen? Naruto asked. As he looked at everyone for a while, Shikamaru took one step further and Naruto looked at him. Naruto, as I am sure you know already, Kakashi-sensei, Rokudaime Hokage, authorized Kumo in hunting Sasuke for what he did against them. I, for one, gathered everyone, to tell both you and Sakura something we all decided upon. The fact that the topic did little to alter Naruto's mood didn't feel well with Shikamaru. The Nara heir was one of the greatest observers in Konoha, and even without a dujutsu like Neji or Hinata, he could pick up on things quite fast. Therefore, he knew instantly that something was wrong with Naruto, at least where Sasuke was concerned. Sakura did tell them about what Naruto thought about Sasuke, but Shikamaru didn't quite believe it without seeing. What about Sasuke? Everyone could see how angry he was at the mention of the Uchiha. Well, as members of his graduating class and the fact that he was somewhat close to us. I believe it's our responsibility to do something about it. I already briefed Sakura about this and she offered to take care of Sasuke herself. I won't sit here, so as much as it's troublesome for me, I'll join with her in hunting Sasuke and bring him to justice. I hereby extend the invitation for anyone who wishes to go with us. I understand that Choji and Neji went on the first retrieval mission, so I assume that both of you will want to take part in this as well. Both Neji and Choji nodded, showing their answer. Shikamaru smiled at the vote of confidence, before turning to Naruto. Now, I believe you will as well, so. No, I won't be joining you guys. Sorry, the blunt answer was expected by Sakura, who looked towards the ground in sadness. Ino could not help but cry at the situation. The rest looked at Naruto like he was a stranger. You said it yourself, Shikamaru. Kakashi-sensei gave clearance to Kumogakur. Sasuke is their responsibility now, not ours. He joined Akatsuki and has become a criminal wanted by everyone. Not just Konoha. As of right now, Sasuke is an A-rank missing nin. I won't waste my time hunting him when I could stay here, improving my skills and help rebuild the village. It's something I believe you all should focus on, instead of worrying about going after him, Naruto said. Before he turned and walked away from his group, he knew his words sounded harsh, but there was no falsity behind it. It was what he chose to focus on, training and reconstructing the village. When his image vanished from the horizon, Shikamaru let out a sigh in frustration as his plan backfired. He wanted to go after Sasuke, in order to prevent a full-scale war between Konoha and Kumogakur. If Kumo manages to kill Sasuke, then no doubt, Sakura or Ino will demand revenge. And if somehow, Ino died, then Inoichi, Choji and himself would demand revenge. In no time, a new war would happen and many lives would be lost. He couldn't allow this to happen. He immediately turned and assembled the ones that would go after Sasuke and kill him once and for all. Hinata, for her part, was no longer present. She went after Naruto the second he vanished. A couple miles away, she found him wandering around the village. Naruto-kun, Hinata said as she appeared by his side. Naruto looked at her from the corner of his eye and smiled. Hello Hinata-chan, since you're with them, I thought that our getting together today would be cancelled. Iba-kun and Shino-kun asked me to come along, so I went with them. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled at her concern, but smiled soon afterward. Yes, I am okay, it's just that what Sasuke did can never be repaired. I don't know what happened to him to become this way. But at least now I've managed to see the truth, him joining the Akatsuki. The very organization that is after me because of what I contain. It was the final slap in the face. I needed to see things for what it truly was. I only hoped I've realized sooner. You know, I wasted so much time focusing on bringing him back. Hinata nodded at his reasoning, while she walked alongside him. Ever since Naruto asked her out for some training, she began to look at him in a different light than before. Her feelings for him hadn't changed. However, before, Naruto was someone she idolized, someone she worshipped, but she never knew much about him or what he thought about things in general. By talking to him and being there for him, she was slowly growing more confident in herself to be there for him, to be the one he trusts when in conflict. I believe that Sasuke grew so focused on revenge against his brother, that, even after killing him, he didn't let go of his hatred. I guess you're right. I did the best I could trying to bring him back. Even so, he spit in my face. He's no longer someone I could count on. Someone I could call my best friend and comrade. The Uchiha Sasuke I knew was dead. His head was down in sadness, but not because of Sasuke, rather the fact that the very person he thought of as a brother ended up joining Akatsuki, and it irked him to no end. Hinata, unexpectedly, landed one hand on his shoulder, showing the same smile that he saw inside the tent yesterday. Once more, his heart skipped a beat, but he didn't know why. You see, can count on me Naruto-kun. The smile on her face was enough to make him smile. I appreciated Hinata-chan. After the brief conversation, both Chunin walked in comfortable silence towards a restaurant where they could get some lunch. In Sunagaku . It took a little more than 2 hours for Baki to tell Jiraiya everything that happened since the battle in Imaginative, and throughout the story, Jiraiya had felt a great number of emotions: anger that Nagato leveled the entire village with one single strike. Pride that Naruto was the one who managed to beat Nagato and at the same time convince him to revive everyone he killed from Konohagakure. According to Baki, Naruto appeared one time with a group of giant toads, as well as two little ones, which Jiraiya guessed that was Fugasaku and Shima. He knew, then, that Fugasaku was the one behind Naruto's training. He remembered talking to the old toad about teaching Naruto the arts of senjutsu someday. To believe that Naruto managed to defeat pain, a foe not even Jiraiya could beat. Even Salamander Hanzo perished at Nagato's hands. Jiraiya was eager to see this new technique that Naruto managed to create. Called Rasenshuriken, according to the report handled by Konoha, Naruto managed to incorporate his elemental affinity into the Rasengan and transform into something unique. He wanted to see his apprentice so badly, but he knew that what was important right now was to rest and return his strength as it was before. He was handicapped, so he needed to get accustomed to one-hand seals and fighting with one arm. Nevertheless, he sensed that bad things were about to happen and no doubt, Konoha would need him. He needed to be ready for when Akatsuki came for Naruto once more. Despite the fact that their numbers were reduced, Jiraiya wouldn't put it past him not to believe that those bastards weren't dangerous. The sun was about to fall in Sunagakure as he looked outside the room window. The horizon may be nice to watch, but a seasoned shinobi like him knew that it was just the calm before the storm. Still, one question wasn't answered: the reason as to why he was here in the first place. Despite the fact that his body was found by some Suna Junins, if he was truly alive, then his rescuers would be the toads. No doubt about it, when a summoner dies, his name is scratched from the contract maintained with the animal in question. He kept thinking for a long time. In order to solve this enigma, before it hit him like a ton of bricks, he was dead. His name was scratched from the contract. Naruto managed to convince Nagato to revive the ones he killed from Konoha. Perhaps, his life was one amongst the ones Pain killed. The Rinnegan had many secrets that were never revealed, and since Nagato was killed, it would remain as such. However, he now knew the truth behind him being with the living once more. Both Naruto and Nagato saved him in the end. With Sasuke . 2 days away from Konoha, Sasuke, his team and White Zetsu were traveling towards the place where the Cage Summit was to be held. While traveling, the Uchiha thought about who became the Rokudaime Hokage. Hatake Kakashi was his sensei. He wondered if Kakashi was aware of what really happened behind the Uchiha massacre. His sensei was an Anbu captain when it happened. After all, surely, he must have known quite a few of Konoha's darkest secrets. Even more so, when he became the Rokudaime Hokage, all of these thoughts bottled up inside his mind. Sasuke did loathe the people from Konohagakure. The Uchiha clan was the strongest clan in Konoha and, thus, the village depended on his clan's services. It was an honor in his mind, and no Cage should have done what the Sandaime did. Konoha should have bowed their heads in submission for the Uchiha. To think that they believed that the village was stronger without the clan was laughable to the last descendant. It didn't matter, he reasoned. With his Sharingan, he would show everyone the power of his clan. Sasuke's delusional ideals were interrupted when Karen warned the group about the tight security maintained by the country's samurai, forcing them to find alternative routes towards the castle. Jugo, talk to the animals and see which route is the least guarded. Karen, keep focusing on the samurai's chakra. Jugo and Karen nodded. Suigetsu, though, placed his hands behind his head and complained in boredom. Karen, immediately, berated him for it, much to White Zetsu's amusement. Sasuke-kun, you have your work cut out for you with these two. A snort was Sasuke's only response as he focused on his surroundings. For now, the group couldn't move from fear of being spotted and ruining the entire operation. It didn't take 10 minutes, though, as a considerably sized owl rested on Jugo's arm. Sasuke, I managed to find the route. It's a couple miles to the right. The area behind the castle is heavily populated with trees and vegetation. It should provide some cover for us to enter the castle unnoticed. Sasuke nodded. Before the group vanished once more, it didn't take long before they found the entrance to the castle, located 2 stores up. Surprisingly enough, Zetsu was nowhere to be seen, which raised some suspicions. It matters not, we don't need him. Let's proceed. Everyone nodded, before the group entered the castle. Inside the castle. Unaware of the sudden invasion, The 5 cages took their designated seats. Kakashi, for his turn, would have taken his book and start reading. But even he knew that by doing so would be a blatant act of disrespect and disregard for the situation. It was bad enough that he did it in front of the Godime Hokage. Quickly observing the other parties, Kakashi was able to recognize pretty much all of the cages present. The Mizukage was what surprised him, though. He knew Mai Terumi from the bingo book. She was a skilled Junin from Kurigakure, but the fact that someone managed to overthrow the Yondaime Mizukage Yagura was worthy of notice. Besides her, everyone else, except Gaara of course, was already old school. The Yondaime Raikage was, like his sensei described, a huge mass of muscles with a temper. Add to the fact that the mont's knowledge of lightning manipulation knew no equal. Pissing the guy off would be a bad idea. Last but not least, there was the Tsushikage. Anuki was already in power when the Yondaime was but a Junin. Wiping eye was forces with the Hiraishin. The fact that Anuki was looking at Kakashi warily the entire time almost made the Rokudime smile in triumph. Despite everything, he still remembered the very source of pain that still lingered heavily in his heart. To this day, though, he doesn't know who was to be held responsible for Obito's death. He still blamed his younger self for not worrying about Rin when she was captured. He always asked himself what would have happened if he wasn't so obsessed with carrying out the mission and forsaking his comrades. Welcome cages. My name is Mifune and I am the leader of Iron Country. I was elected by Raikage Dono to mediate the meeting. Now, seeing as we are all here because of him, I pass the word to him. Raikage Dono, if you may, the gigantic man nodded, before clearing his throat. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude that all of you attended to my call. Akatsuki not only managed to capture the 2-tailed Jinchuriki, but also my brother, the 8-tailed Jinchuriki. This organization roamed our lands for far too long. We must do something to stop them. Not long after the Raikage ceded, Anuki started laughing. Losing your Jinchuriki is a sign of weakness, Raikage Dono. With all due respect, I wouldn't admit such a thing in front of the other cages. The fact that you not lost one, but two is even worse. The Raikage immediately snarled at the old man for his insolence. However, it was Kakashi who returned the jab. He knew Iwa's actions regarding their 2 Jinchuriki. Akatsuki is made of S-rank level shinobi Tsushikage Dono. Some of them can even top a cage in power. The situation my village is facing is proof enough of their capabilities. Also, I believe that Iwa's 2 Jinchurikis were also captured. Despite the fact that you did nothing to stop it, am I to assume that you deserted both of them, in favor of not having to waste time and shinobi protecting or training them? Kakashi said, silencing Anuki. The Raikage was impressed with Konoha's knowledge, but only crossed his arms, as the discussion progressed. Gaara decided to add in his 2 cents to the conversation. Akatsuki is dangerous and like Hokage Dono said, we should not take them lightly. Anuki laughed once more at the naive comment coming the young cage. This coming from the village that, on several occasions in the past, used them for missions. As soon as Gaara heard this, he was livid. How dare this man make such an accusation? After what they did to him, the fact that everyone present looked at him was proof enough that it was a valid questioning. The Tsushikage, if possible, only smirked even more. From your face, I see that your council used to hide things from you. Cage Dono, perhaps it would be wise to question them when you return. Akatsuki is a group of high-level shinobi that carried out missions as freelancers, mercenaries if you will. Their asking price was small compared to one of our missions, and it's even better when you don't have to worry about losing any men. The fact that Suna attacked Konoha was precisely the reason why Suna would stop using the village's own resources. The history lesson was enough to cause a few minutes of tensed silence, but Kakashi already knew all of this. The man was realistic concerning these types of situations. Indeed, Suna was desperate because their daimyo was hiring Konoha for missions. Instead of going local, however, Suna alone didn't attack Konoha. But Orochimaru, who was disguised was the Yondaime cage, tricked everyone into believing that this was their best course of action. The fact, though, was that the Tsushikage knew about Akatsuki's asking price, and that was too much to pass by. It was quite obvious that because of the last great ninja war, Iwa suffered a great number of casualties and only now recovered from it. Surely, the man must have used freelancers or mercenaries, like Akatsuki, for high-level missions with a low probability of success. How, may I ask, do you know about the fact that Akatsuki carried missions for others, Tsushikage Dono? The question surprised Anuki, but he didn't let it show. Surely, Iwa passed through the same difficulties as soon after the last great ninja war. Anuki at first didn't say it, but he knew he was caught as he looked at the newly appointed Hokage. You don't need to hide it, Tsushikage Dono. My intelligence knew you also used Akatsuki for high-level missions. Anuki snarled some more, but knew he couldn't say anything. In truth, Iwagakure has made tough choices in favor of its survival. The last great ninja war brought forth dire consequences for its shinobi. Pretty much more than a half of Iwa's forces were killed by Konohagakure's infuriatingly skilled shinobi. It wasn't only Namikaze Minato, but also the very man in this room, Hatake Kakashi, that managed to kill a great load of Iwagakure shinobi. A lot of Hyuga and Uchihas as well were responsible for Iwa's losses. Anuki had to increase his shinobi force as well as increase the economic force of his village, which meant diminishing costs and taking high-paying missions. By hiring Akatsuki to perform the high-level missions, Iwagakure would receive the income from the client, without fear of losing a single shinobi. Also, since they were all S-ranked missing nins, there wasn't a force in this world that would oppose to them. This pointing of fingers is counterproductive to the objective behind this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd suggest we focus more on figuring a way to eliminate the current threat known as Akatsuki. Mifune said, earning nods from everyone present as he talked once more. From what I was able to gather, and from the intel presented by the 5 hidden villages, Akatsuki is a deadly organization composed only by S-ranked missing nins from all the hidden villages. Except Kumogakure, some of the members were already neutralized, but they still represent a threat, and despite the fact that some of their members were already dealt with, it's safe to say that no one here, individually, can take them down for good. That being said, as moderator of this meeting, I hereby propose that Mifune was about to announce his solution to the problem, when someone materialized in the middle of the room. A bunch of vines would be a better description, as everyone prepared for the worst. When the vines opened, Zetsu appeared greeting everyone. Hello, Uchiha Sasuke is here, let's all go find him. Before he could scream some more, the Raikage used his impressive speed and grabbed Zetsu's neck with one hand, threatening to break his neck. Where is Uchiha Sasuke? Tell me, damn it. He squeezed Zetsu's neck even more. But the Akatsuki member refused to say. Seeing that the man wouldn't talk, the Raikage broke White Zetsu's neck. Before turning to Shi, his blonde Junin bodyguard, the man in question nodded. Before he focused on his sensory skills, it took him less than a minute to find Sasuke's location. In an instant, the 3 Kumo shinobi vanished from the room. Kakashi's bodyguards turned to the Hokage to see if Konoha would do something against the Uchiha traitor. Indeed, Sasuke is our responsibility, mostly it's mine responsibility. Seeing as I was his Junin sensei, however, before coming here, I gave the Raikage free rein to hunt Sasuke for what he did to the Raikage's brother. Interfering right now wouldn't the best course of action. The 2 Anbus considered disobeying the indirect order and strike Sasuke, since it was their duty to kill any shinobi that dares to betray the leaf. However, the oath took by them in front of the Yondaime Hokage, a man they both respected and even to this day admired, they couldn't act against the Hokage's orders, an act that would mean treason. Therefore, they remained inside the room in order to protect the Rokudaime Hokage. Kakashi somehow wouldn't be surprised if both went after his ex-student. It sort of surprised him that neither questioned his orders. Still, a part of Kakashi wondered about the upcoming fight between Sasuke and the Raikage. From what he heard of the man and his style of fighting, Sasuke would be lucky if he managed to escape with his limbs intact. Though, perhaps I should have gone there and deal with the situation myself. Not even aware of his ex-teammates' intentions, Naruto was on the training ground as usual. Trying to master his wind affinity, his goal was to match Shimura Danza's level. Vacuum manipulation, he learned, would only be acquired after experience and dedication. It takes time to reach the level of finesse required. Unfortunately, patience wasn't Naruto's thing and he was getting quite frustrated at the results of his attempts. He admitted that his technique had improved, but not in a way as to believe that he was remotely close. A part of him believed that Danzo only managed to achieve said level of mastery because of his age. It made sense, because he was probably the same age as the Sandaime. That would mean that no matter how much Naruto wanted or even tried, he wouldn't be able to reach his goal for quite a while. The other part of his mind, the stubborn one, believed that he wasn't trying hard enough. An understandable way of thinking, considering that up to this point, he learned mostly everything through hard work alone. Although if he was deeply honest with himself, attaining the skill of vacuum manipulation mastery wasn't much his goal as compared to becoming stronger. In order to become a Junin-level shinobi in every aspect, Naruto needed at least 2 or more elements, and vacuum manipulation was just an improved version of wind. Now that he thought about it, he was punching himself repeatedly. He had all the time in the world to improve his wind manipulation, which in all fairness, was already advanced for a chunin. With this thought in mind, he chose a different strategy regarding his training. Of course, the physical aspect, taijutsu and his trench knives, would still exist in his routine, but as far as ninjutsu was concerned, it was better to focus on other elements to train on. Sadly so, he only knew one place he could go to. He already narrowed it down to 2 elements, that being earth or water. Now, it was time to decide which one. He remembered seeing a specific scroll at the library that contained notes on secondary elements. It didn't take long before he reached the provisional library, which happens to be attached to the Hokage Monument Mountain. Once inside, he greeted the Chunin desk clerk, who happened to respect the blonde since he managed to defeat Pain and saved Konoha. The man wore the standard Chunin attire with a blue bandana and reading glasses, and because it was the village's hero, he even offered to assist Naruto in his quest to discover which element he should focus on besides wind. Naruto was surprised, though, when instead of getting up from his table and finding the books, the clerk just picked a familiar piece of paper and handed to him. I am sure you already did this test before, Naruto, but it's advisable to do it once more after a while. Your chakra coils are still being developed, and thus, the paper could show a new affinity that is best suited for you, besides wind of course. Instead of reading books about which element to choose from, this paper could better help you. Naruto nodded. He took the piece of paper and started focusing some chakra. When he opened his eyes, Naruto was disappointed that the paper was only sliced in half, indicating that he was in fact a wind type. However, he was confused when the Chunin clerk smiled. He followed the mont's line of sight and was overjoyed to see that both sides of the paper were moist, revealing the second element that he was looking for. He had a sub-affinity for water. The clerk adjusted his glasses as he looked at the blonde's happiness. He ushered Naruto to follow him as he grabbed some scrolls that explained water manipulation and a few low-ranked jutsu to begin with. Naruto was surprised, though, when he was looking at the selected scrolls. I am sorry, but you gave me earth scrolls as well. Indeed I did. I was going to explain after I ended the selection. But since you asked, I might as well get it underway. Wind is an offensive element by nature, with the exception of a few jutsus for defensive purposes, as you already know. And despite water being your second element, its prime weakness, which you'd find out eventually, relies on the fact that in order to use water jutsu, you'll need a nearby source of water to rely on, in case you're in a pickle and without water around. Your sweetened knowledge would be next to useless. Earth, on the other hand, is more versatile. I know that with your dedication, you could learn both elements in no time, at least as far as to be able to use it in battle. You could even use water for more offensive purposes and leave earth for defensive only. Even though the blonde was scratching his head, he managed to grasp the mont's explanation. He knew that with his Kage Bunshin, he had an advantage in terms of the amount of time required to learn them. He just wondered if perhaps the theory behind it was too difficult for him to grasp. Well, I guess I must get to work, then, right? The man nodded and left the scrolls on the first table for the village's hero. Sunagaku . After a couple of days, Jiraiya's condition was stabilized. Despite that, he stayed by Tsunade's side the entire time, pondering on the last course of events. 4 years ago, Akatsuki's moves were limited to the bijus. Now their actions caused the 5 biggest elemental villages to gather for the first time since the end of the Third Ninja War. The amount of influence exercised by a small organization was astonishing. He figured that with Pain's defeat by Naruto's hands, the organization was finished for good. The news that a man, rumored to be more powerful than the Rinnegan user, sent chills to Jiraiya's spine. The Rinnegan was perhaps the strongest dujutsu in existence, and to know that someone else was controlling Pain was unbearable. Another manner in his mind was his missing limb, as he would unconsciously pass his only hand around the scar. As a sign of good faith, Sunagaku had offered him a wooden arm, just like the one used by Lady Chiyo. Even if the art of puppetry wasn't that hard to learn, Jiraiya was having reservations about it. The notion that a part of him wasn't human bothered him somewhat. Despite everything, he knew that the odds of him surviving with only one arm were rather low. Without his extra arm, he would have to adapt his style of fighting. This in itself wasn't such an alarming situation, compared to the necessity of learning one-hand seals. Given his status as a Sannin, his skills would be valuable against Akatsuki. Therefore, he couldn't afford to have principles right now. He needed to be 100% against them, which meant that, unfortunately, he would have to accept Sunagaku's offer. He would take the time for Tsunade to wake up and learn the basic principles behind his new arm. He communicated his decision to Baki, who for his part, informed that the procedure would be quick and rather painless. Seeing as Chiyo's brother had time right now, he followed Baki towards the Mont's house, leaving Tsunade alone for the time being. It didn't take long to reach his house, since it was very close to the hospital. Once they arrived, Jiraiya was surprised that everything was in place for the procedure. As previously informed, this procedure won't take too long. First of all, I need to take measures of your arm so that I can manufacture the replacement. We can begin right afterward. You'll be asleep during the procedure, so do not worry. After the incision is complete, the seals, placed throughout the wooden arm, will create a link between your chakra tenketsu and the wooden arm. Considering your skill, you'll be able to use it just as good as the real one, in about 2 or 3 days. Now, could you please show me your arm so that I can register the measures? Jiraiya nodded and extended his arm. The entire procedure took no longer than 4 hours. But because of the anesthesia, Jiraiya would be unconscious for at least the entire day. This way, the seals could work their magic and integrate Jiraiya's chakra to his new limb. Once he woke up, the Sannin spent close to 1 hour staring at his new appendage. He was focusing every bit of his willpower into moving it. Without avail, it was understandable, because he would have to receive instructions on how to use it. At least, now, he wouldn't have to worry about adapting his fighting style anymore. With Sasuke . Sasuke and his team moved carefully inside the castle so as not arouse suspicion from the samurai. The team used their chakra ability and jumped on top of the samurais. Once they reached a clear hall, the team jumped to the ground, running full speed towards the place where the cage meeting was being held. Karen, however, flinched upon feeling an amazing chakra presence approaching their position. The other saw that she stopped and asked her what happened. A strong chakra signature is coming here. I believe they already know of our presence. Sasuke immediately cursed his situation as he knew who alerted the enemy. Suigetsu opted to vent out his frustrations, openly cursing Zetsu. Karen could feel how cold Sasuke's chakra was becoming. Just as a hole opened from the ceiling, in seconds, 3 presences appeared in front of Team Taka. The Raikage and his 2 bodyguards looked at Uchiha Sasuke. The Raikage's face indicated his intention quite clearly. Uchiha Sasuke would meet his end right here for what he did to his brother. Sasuke, for his part, was furious at the situation. He grabbed his sword and focused lightning chakra, attacking the Raikage at impressive speeds. The Raikage, though, just stood there unimpressed. As soon as Sasuke was within striking distance, Darui did a couple hand seals, before gathering water inside his lungs. Suiten Sujineki, water release. Water wall technique. The wall of water stopped Sasuke's movements, but Darui wasn't finished as he changed the hand seal, using the water as a conduit for a lightning technique. Raiden Kangekiha, lightning release. Inspiration wave technique. The water increased the power of the lightning attack, forcing Sasuke to back off. Despite it all, given his lightning affinity, the attack didn't cause much damage, confirming the intel given by Konoha. Much to Team Taka's frustration, as if they expected otherwise. The Raikage, seeing enough, charged his body with electricity and attacked Sasuke. Suigetsu and Jugo tried to intercept, but they were stopped by Darui and Shi's attacks, leaving the Raikage alone against Sasuke. Because of the Sharingan, Sasuke managed to dodge the Raikage's powerful strike. However, the man was faster than he realized. The Raikage's attacks were unstoppable and thus Sasuke had to rely on his eyes to escape. Creating a distance, Sasuke performed hand seals, before gathering air inside his lungs. Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu, Fire Release, Grand Fireball Technique. The Raikage just stepped aside as the fire technique passed by him. Before reaching the room wall, an explosion soon followed, gathering a great load of smoke around the fighters. Sasuke took advantage of the distraction and appeared behind the Raikage with his sword ready to strike. However, as soon as he attempted to slash the Raikage, the man lifted his arm bracelets and blocked the attack. Before he landed a powerful kick that sent the Uchiha flying, Sasuke managed to use the momentum and flipped his body in order to land on the pillar with both his feet. He threw a great load of shurikens at the Raikage with great precision, forcing the powerful cage to focus on the projectiles. When the man dodged the last projectile, Sasuke was in front of him with Kakashi's signature move, the Chidori. Despite the Raikage's lightning armor, he was surprised that Sasuke managed to pierce it, even if only barely. He acknowledged the technique's creator, before grabbing Sasuke's body and rising up in the air like a wrestler. Screaming in triumph, the Raikage slammed Sasuke's body on the ground, opening a considerable hole. The Raikage was surprised, though, when he saw that Sasuke managed to create some kind of purple skeleton around himself to protect him. He was more surprised when Sasuke's Sharingan eyes morphed into something else entirely. Before he even had time to ponder on the Mangenkyu Sharingan, his right arm became a victim to Sasuke's Amaterasu. The Raikage knew what would happen to him if the fire consumed his body, hence why he sliced his own arm off. Seeing their cage ripping his arm, Darui and Shi moved to assist, with Darui covering and Shi using medical ninjutsu to cauterize the wound caused by the Raikage's actions. Despite it all, not once the Raikage complained about the pain. Darui merged both hands together, similar to the snake hand sign, focusing a significant amount of chakra. Sasuke, despite using the Mangenkyu Sharingan, couldn't get the information on whatever ninjutsu the man was about to use. He charged Darui in hopes to prevent the attack from happening, but Darui was an experienced Junin and finished the preparations before Sasuke even moved. Ranten Ryaza Sasuke, Storm Release, Laser Circus Technique. From his extended hands, Darui sent a great number of laser bombs towards Sasuke, who cursed his lack of timing. He was forced to dodge every one of them. While seeing the damage done to the ground and the wall, he realized that if he was to be hit, no doubt his body would receive a great load of damage. Focusing more chakra through his right Sharingan eye, despite feeling unbearable pain, he managed to use the Amaterasu once more. Darui didn't have the Raikage's speed, hence why he was already on the verge of using one of the debris for a simple Kawarimi. However, he was momentarily surprised upon seeing sand in front of him, blocking the path of the black flames. Looking behind him, Darui saw the cage along with his bodyguards Temari and Konkuro. Being the proud man that he was, the Raikage immediately protested against the cage's presence, deeming it unnecessary. Gaara, though, ignored the Raikage and stepped forward. He needed to at least try and dissuade Sasuke out of this mess. Uchiha Sasuke, you have done enough already. Gaara couldn't help but see himself in Sasuke's eyes. It was filled with darkness. Your eyes show how lost in darkness you are. I closed my eyes a long time ago. Gaara, my goal only exists in darkness. Any attempt in trying to convince me otherwise is pointless. A lone tear escaped the cage's eyes, not because of what Sasuke just said, but because if it wasn't for Naruto, he would have the same mentality. The Raikage snarled once more at the cage for the attempt alone and ushered Darui to attack the Uchiha with his long-range technique. This time, though, Darui wasn't the only one attacking, as Gaara, Konkuro and Temari prepared their respective long-range attacks as well. Ranten Ryaza Sasuke, Storm Release, Laser Circus Technique. Futen Ukamedachi, Wind Release, Big Cutting Whirlwind Technique. Suna Shigure Renda, Sand Shower Barrage. Akahigi Kiki Senkuku, Red Secret Technique Machine Triangles. The four attacks charged against Sasuke, threatening to level the entire field. As soon as the techniques reached his position, a great explosion erupted, causing Karen to scream Sasuke's name in fright. When the smoke cleared, though, everyone was surprised upon seeing an enormous creature made from the same purple chakra that Sasuke used for the barrier. It was a gigantic skeleton with two horns on its head as it protected Sasuke from the attacks. The pompous Uchiha never lost that arrogant smile on his face as he praised the Mangenkyu Sharingan's absolute defense called Susanoo. Despite the higher cost in chakra, Sasuke managed to maintain the technique as he smirked once more at the cage. Gaara, this is even greater than your ultimate defense. The Raikage was watching everything, while she was busy fixing his injured arm. Because of the major chaos inside the chamber, no one realized that 3 new individuals have joined in. Long time no see, Sasuke, Kakashi said, as he looked at his ex-student with apparent boredom. Flanked by the Fudan twins, the announcement surprised the Uchiha momentarily. Before he smiled at his old sensei, no doubt, he thought that Kakashi would be another one among those who tried breaking the Uchiha's ultimate defense, despite knowing that in order to maintain the Mangenkyu Sharingan, Sasuke was wasting a lot of chakra. Kakashi wanted to take a look at Sasuke with his only visible eye first, even if he knew what happened to his former student. An image always spoke better than words. Kakashi, Sasuke said, raising his sensei's attention. As Hokage of that forsaken village, it's you who must pay for the atrocities committed against the Uchiha clan and against my brother. Today is the day you die. The lunatic smile on his face was evident enough that Sasuke was forever lost in darkness. He sighed in dismay for a moment, at how low Sasuke has fallen and lifted his Sharingan eye. Sasuke was surprised upon seeing a different form of Mangenkyu Sharingan eyes and snorted at the situation. Little did he know, though, that a gigantic vortex was being created behind him and the creature. So engrossed was the Uchiha in fulfilling his final vengeance that the vortex was completed. At the Hyuga compound As the sun was about to set for the day, 2 figures were seen sparring against each other inside the Hyuga compound. Hyuga Neji and Hyuga Hinata sparred every day, since Hinata managed to pass the Chunin exams, but, despite the fact that her skills increased, Neji wasn't considered the genius of the clan for nothing and he won every time. It didn't mean, though, that Hinata was as weak as the first time they battled together. It was just that Neji's growth rate was almost unstoppable. Hyuga Hiyashi, Hinata's father, was the only one watching and against everyone's preconception of the mon's cold attitude towards his daughter, was smiling at both of them. Hinata and Neji represented the second generation of rivalry inside the clan. He could see himself battling the same way against his brother Hisashi. Although he could see that Hinata improved greatly, Hiyashi couldn't help but praise Neji's skills with the Juken. The boy had a level of finesse that was astounding for one his age. In his mind, this match would be the same as every match before as Neji was slowly but surely overpowering Hinata. He was caught by surprise when his eldest daughter managed to push Neji backward, before jumping high and using her feet to deliver a strong roundhouse kick aimed at Neji's head. The gentle fist style of fighting only used the legs for agility purposes and the hands were used for the attacks. When Neji saw Hinata's feet glowing with chakra, he realized, too late, her intentions. He tried blocking the attack with both his arms and he succeeded in protecting his head. However, because of the attack, his defenses were opened for a few seconds, allowing Hinata to drop towards the ground and focus a great load of chakra through her palm. She, then, slammed both fists on Neji's chest, sending him flying a couple of meters. The strike was so fierce that he even spilled blood as his body landed on the ground hard. Even Hinata became surprised and quickly ran to assist her cousin. Because of her nature, she didn't even register the fact that she won her first match in 3 years against Neji. Seeing Hinata using the Juken to unseal Neji's Tenketsu, Hiyashi smiled at the new kata developed by her daughter. Even if a bit unorthodox considering the fundamentals of the gentle fist style of fighting. He wondered what happened to Hinata, though, because that move she just came up with indicated a different type of behavior. More aggressive. He just couldn't picture his daughter being like that at all. Hiyashi's mind even went as far as to recall a report from Neji 2 days ago, saying that Hinata was seen training with the village savior Uzumaki Naruto. Come to think about it, the move that Hinata just did on Neji was something that Naruto would do. Hiyashi wasn't alien to the level of infatuation that Hinata had for that boy and he figured it was high time he had a small talk with Naruto. If he's anything like his parents, though, the conversation will be quite entertaining. With Naruto . Unaware of the impending doom, Naruto was busy scratching his head as he was focused in learning water and earth manipulation. Despite using his clones to reduce the time, Naruto realized that he wouldn't be able to read everything today and practice it like he set himself to do. That being realized, he copied everything he needed to learn in a notebook. It took him the amount of 2 hours and his hands were sore because of it. He found out, though, that by writing it down, he didn't have much difficulty remembering what he read before. Looking at the window, he saw the sun setting on the horizon and left the library, after appreciating the Chunin clerk's help. The village was filled with engineers and construction materials. The gigantic hole created by Pain's attack was already covered with earth jutsu. In no time, the village would be finished. Seeing this, a new vigor rose inside Naruto as he ran towards the nearby water stream, where he could practice his secondary affinity. Once he arrived, he summoned 100 clones and told them to do what the book said about water manipulation. He, on the other hand, would do something else, taking his new weapon. The blonde went through the motions as if he was being attacked by multiple enemies. He pictured enemies attacking him with taijutsu, others with swords and even one or two with the bow staff, while the clones were busy gathering water inside their mouths, as well as sucking the air and focusing chakra. He was busy defending and attacking, using his weapons. He kept like this for a good 3 hours as a little drop of sweat appeared on his forehead. Despite this, it would at least another hour until he couldn't take it any longer. The two Anbu that watched him couldn't help but be surprised at the level of stamina and chakra capacity. Naruto would have kept on going with his exercises if not for the fact that one of his clones just managed to shot a beam of water laced with chakra. Once Naruto dispelled the clone, the others received the knowledge instantly and started practicing with a new vigor for about 30 minutes. Now, the clones were repeating the same exercise over and over again, and quite frankly the real Naruto was getting tired of watching. He dispelled them all in groups of 10, so as not to overload his brain. The benefits of training with clones didn't escape the blonde, as he knew that normally, he would take close to a couple weeks to be able to do what he did in 3 hours. Right now, he was exhausted and hungry. A good bowl of instant ramen and a nice rest was in order. The blonde had surmised that he would find Yamato tomorrow to see if his skills will be needed, as well as begin to adapt what he learned regarding water manipulation into jutsu. He had a list of 3 to practice, those being the Mizu Bunshin water clone, Kurigakure no Jutsu, hiding in the mist technique, and Sujineki no Jutsu, water wall technique. Atetsu no Kuni . Despite being alerted of the vortex behind him by Karen, Sasuke couldn't do anything to prevent himself from being sucked inside. Kakashi thanked the heavens that his plan had worked and Sasuke wouldn't cause any more trouble to Konoha than he already had. Luckily, he would be transported to some faraway location and not interrupt this meeting any longer. He figured that he wasn't as tired as he was before, which meant that he was getting used to the Mangenkyu Sharingan. He, then, ushered everyone inside the meeting where they could carry on with the meeting. While the samurais arrested Karen, Suigetsu and Jugo. Suigetsu and Jugo were both unconscious after their fights with the Cloud Junins, and Karen, well, she didn't have much skill to be that much a threat. Once inside the meeting room, the cages took their respective seats and regained the conversation about the alliance. However, everyone cursed when a new vortex appeared from the other side of the balcony used by the bodyguards. What was more surprising, though, was that instead of Sasuke coming out of it, came a man with the Akatsuki robes and an orange swirling mask holding an unconscious Sasuke on his shoulder. His focus was aimed at Kakashi. Your skills far exceed your reputation, Hitaki Kakashi. To be able to utilize that technique without being an Uchiha is nothing short of impressive. Now, I want to take this opportunity and talk to all 5 of you. Madara had to stop for a while, as the Raikage charged at him, with his lightning armor. The Raikage passed through Madara, though, before opening a hole on the wall. As I was saying, before the Raikage's rudeness, I just wanted to have a quick word with everyone. It involves a special project of mine called Tasuki no Mi Munai Plan. And so, Madara started explaining his plan to everyone present. As he spoke, everyone was slowly feeling the repercussions of yet another great ninja war in ninja history. Some of the facts presented by him, like the Raikudo Sennin being the first Jinchuriki, shocked everyone, even if some believed the Sage of the Six Paths to be a myth. Of course, that by the time Madara stopped explaining his plan, everyone snarled at Madara, wondering why the hell he wanted a war and why only now. Of course, he gave the people in the room a choice to escape the war, and that was hand it over the Hachibi and Kyuubi Jinchuriki. I am not going to bother with the conversation, it's the same as what happened in canon. The Raikage was the first to realize what Madara implied and was shaking in fury. You mean that you haven't captured the Hachibi yet, but what about? His face was already sweating, while waiting for a response. The attempt to capture the 8 tails failed and he escaped. Right now, the Raikage was speechless as his bodyguards sighed in dismay at B's antics. He worried everyone with his disappearance. Everyone ignored the Raikage's rant of anger regarding B's actions and turned to Madara. Kakashi didn't even need to voice it that handling Naruto to this man was out of the question. Since Gaara already spoke in that regard, Madara just nodded and, after sending Sasuke to another dimension, just like Kakashi did, he announced the start of the 4th Great Ninja War. He vanished soon afterward. Kakashi began to speak, regarding the alliance. Right now, it's imperative that we form this alliance between the 5 hidden villages. Madara has the power of the 7-tailed beasts, but with us joining forces, we would have a much higher average of success in this war. I trust that everyone here is in favor of this. All the Kages nodded. But what about the remaining Jinchurikis? Asked the Mizukage. They have to be protected from Akatsuki at all costs. The Tsuchikage nodded, but had a different point of view than the others. Considering that Madara have the power of the 7-tailed beasts, I believe it's best to use the Hachibi and Kyuubi Jinchurikis on the front lines. If by chance Madara's power is too great and kills everyone, then protecting the Jinchuriki would be meaningless. He received no supporters, though. By doing this, will be like handling them to Akatsuki on a silver platter. Those were Raikage's words. By coming here and issuing the start of this war, Akatsuki's plan is for us to rely on our Jinchuriki and place them on the front lines against their tailed beasts. Amidst the confusion and chaos, they could capture both of them and Madara's plan would be finished. Gaara finished, completing the Raikage's opinion. Everyone concurred that it was best to protect the Jinchurikis. Even if in Kakashi's mind, he knew that Naruto wouldn't enjoy this at all, despite the fact that he defeated Pain and was now overcoming his deficiencies in shinobi training. There was no doubt in his mind that both the Kazekage and the Raikage were correct. In the end, the meeting was adjourned since the Raikage needed to track B first, in case he was being targeted by the Akatsuki once more. I am not going to focus on B's fight against Kisame. The outcome will be the same as in canon. With Naruto . It was already night time in Konoha as the entire population went to their respective tents for the day. Naruto was no different as he separated his notebook to do some reading. While he prepared a couple of instant ramen, seeing as the theory behind Sweden was, for the most part, covered, Naruto moved to his third and last element, Earth. Like water-based techniques, Earth had some nice supplementary techniques that could aid the ninja against the foe. With said knowledge, the ninja could merge with the land, getting below the ground, not even counting the nice defense techniques, and the blonde was already laughing in excitement. He figured that if he managed to perform Doden techniques to an acceptable level, he could be unstoppable. While filling his mouth with the food of the gods, Naruto started reading his notes on Earth manipulation. As he read, though, he was having quite some difficulty in adapting the theory into practice. According to his notes, an Earth user is able to manipulate the Earth by will alone. He figured that focusing chakra towards the land would solve his problems. But the book corrected him. Sure, the techniques required chakra. But simply directing your chakra towards the ground wouldn't do a thing. If that was true, then anyone could create Earth techniques. He figured that it was better to do a little bit of both and practice until exhaustion. Like he always did, and it worked for him. He wasn't that much a scholar anyway. So he didn't bother in understanding what the book meant, focusing on what else was written. He already knew that he didn't need to understand it fully, but just enough to start practicing. He picked a couple techniques from the library that meant exclusively for defensive and supplementary capabilities. The Dujinheki, mud wall technique, and the Tsuchi Bunshin were the only techniques selected by Naruto for the time being, but he wanted to learn, later, how to hide below ground. Naruto was surprised when a familiar voice announced his presence. "Naruto, are you in there?" Neji said as he lifted the tent entrance and kneeled in front of the blonde. "Hi there Neji, what do you need?" When Naruto received no answer from his friend, he wondered what the hell was on with Neji. The Hyuga genius, though, just kept staring at Naruto. Neji was like a statue, doing nothing but staring at Naruto for a good minute. The recently promoted Chunin looked at the Junin with a frown, wondering why Neji would come here only to stare at him like that. Suddenly, Neji released a sigh in dismay and closed his eyes briefly. I just can't read you anymore, Naruto. First, it was the Sasuke's decision. Out of all of us, you were the only one who never abandoned him and always did everything in your grasp to bring him back. Now, though, you suddenly don't want to know anything about it. Also, you've been seeing Hinata-sama a lot lately. I don't know what to think of you anymore. For someone as predictable as you, it has been very aggravating to understand you these days. Naruto just listened to his friend's rants and at first he was amused that a Hyuga was in front of him, talking non-stop about his frustrations. It was indeed very funny. Naruto knew, though, that things like this would happen eventually. Is this why you came here for Neji? Naruto smirked once the Hyuga nodded. Sasuke was the first bond I've created, and yes, I was obsessed with bringing him back. Because I believed that it was the right thing to do. When he left with Orochimaru, I believed that the cursed seal was to blame. Making him do things against his will, it all changed. Though, when he joined the very organization that is after me. Sure, it sounds selfish, but so far, his acts of vengeance were directed at his brother. Now, he joins Akatsuki, the organization who's hunting me. This fact alone woke me up. I guess, one who wouldn't stop at nothing until his cold heart gets satisfied, which everyone knows, won't ever happen. Now, regarding Hinata, I am enjoying her company a lot lately. I know that you've been very protective of her lately, but rest assured that my intentions are nothing but positive. I don't know much about feelings for others, but somehow, when I am with her, it feels different somehow. I get this warmth inside my chest, you know. Neji maintained his stoic visage as he processed everything. He was a Hyuga after all. Deep inside though, he was happy that Naruto was feeling the same for Hinata as she felt for him. He could see truth behind those words. I see, I understand now about the change of heart regarding Sasuke. Neji had closed his eyes, while speaking, when he opened. Naruto saw the Byakugan activated. As to Hinata-sama, if you ever hurt her, it'll kill you. It doesn't matter if you are the hero that managed to defeat pain or the fact that you have the strongest tailed beast inside you. I will kill you. Naruto just nodded, white still maintaining a light smile on his face at how protective Neji was of Hinata. Who would have thought that 3 years ago, this very person loathed the very ground Hinata stepped on? Do not worry Neji. I would never do such a thing to her, you know that. The Hyuga prodigy nodded. As he got up and walked towards the tent exit, he stopped, though, for a while and turned to see the blonde once more. Oh, and I also came here to handle an invitation from Hyuga Hiyashi-sama. He invited you to lunch tomorrow, Neji explained, before giving Naruto the formal invitation as expected from such a noble clan of shinobi. Naruto just nodded in acceptance. Thanks for watching.